Lovely.
Sure.
So easily amused.
How you doing, Ace?
Pretty good. How are you?
Hanging in there.
You know, that song is from the 1960s.
Okay.
From West.
Did you say Wild Wild West?
Yeah, the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
Starring Robert Conrad and Ross Martin. And I, as a teenage boy, 14 years old or so, God, I looked forward every Friday night to that show.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most exciting show on television at the time. And that opening song was just killer. Well, anyway, long about 1969, they took the show off the air because the liberal whiners, the James gang of the political world, they were complaining that there was too much violence on that show
Oh yeah.
because every episode was just a glorified fight scene between Jim West and 5 stuntmen.
Mm,
And it was the same stuntmen in every episode because, it was a team that worked together. They all knew how to work together.
sure.
And in order so you wouldn't recognize that they were the same stuntmen, in every episode, these 5 stuntmen were the bad guys, and they were always dressed up in masks and costumes.
Hmm. Hmm.
So as a boy, I never knew that it was the same 5 stunt guys all the time fighting him.
Did they
Anyway,
have
so
did they have COVID back then? Why were they wearing
COVID,
masks? Why were they wearing masks again?
because
Sorry,
the
I'm
plot
sorry.
line.
I'm sorry. I was.
Yeah, you're funny. I get it. A joke that went over my head.
Oh my.
Yeah, the plot line, would call for him to, fight this mad monster who had, say, he was a cult leader, and all these cult leader followers would wear hoods, or they would all be wearing some type of face mask, or
Sure.
some type of costume to where you couldn't tell it was the same guys in every episode. But
Hmm. Hmm.
not everybody is a stuntman. It takes a lot of skill to know how to fake
Yeah.
a punch and how to fall. And
Sure. Sure.
anyway, so long about 1969, they took the show off the air. I did not hear that song for probably about 20 years. And I took the family in the 80s, sometime in the 80s, to a circus, Barnum and Bailey Circus, I think, one of their last performances. And of course, among all the entertainment there, they had this big band in the middle of the big tent. And just out of nowhere, this band played perfectly the theme song of the Wild Wild West. And I go, oh my God, that's beautiful. I melted.
Yeah.
It was great.
There were a few Western shows, Wagon Train and a couple others. I get them all mixed up. I can't differentiate one from the other at this point. They all kind
Uh,
of blend.
you know
Marshall
what?
Dillon, Marshall Dillon.
You know what the weird thing about Wagon Train was? It was on the air for like 6 years, and it only takes 3 months to go across the country in a wagon train.
Well, they must have met lots of trouble on the way.
Oh yeah, it was a 6-year journey that only takes any normal people 3 months. Okay,
Oh wait, Marshall Dillon, that wasn't Wagon Train, was it?
that's right. That was not Wagon Train.
See, I told you I get them all mixed up.
Marshall Dillon was Gunsmoke. The show was
There you
Gunsmoke.
go. Okay, okay.
And the featured item of Gunsmoke was Chester and then
Yep.
Festus, and also that prostitute turned saloon owner with the red
Yeah.
hair, Miss
Yeah.
Kitty.
Yep. Miss Kitty.
Hmm.
I remember her.
Yeah, nobody ever acknowledged in the script of the show that she must have been a hooker before, because that's how she somehow ended up owning the saloon.
Yeah. Okay.
And there was always this romantic tension between Marshall Dillon and Miss Kitty,
Oh
but
yeah.
but they
There sure
never
was.
kissed. They never fell in love on the show, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, Ace, I appreciate how you were changing the verse numbers today,
Hmm.
keeping thoughts together rather than particular sentences, numbering them out. Uh, I think that's a very good way to look at the scriptures, that there's thought patterns that need to be intact rather than separating those thought patterns with verse numbers that
Mm-hmm.
make you think it's possibly something else. It may be something else. If it is a different topic, then go ahead and start another, put a verse number, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Just
I
for
thought
you
that was helpful.
lurkers, you side chatters, and you people who are watching this show after we close up shop. Earlier this morning, I did an episode examining 1 Corinthians 15, verses 20 through 28. And I scrutinized the heck out of those 8 verses. And I tried to show that there is not a rhyme scheme like we have in our Western culture where the words rhyme phonetically, like,
Roses are
tune
red.
and boon, roses are red, violets are blue, yeah, sugar's sweet, and so are you. That's phonetic rhyming. But throughout the Bible, it doesn't work with phonetic rhyming, but it does rhyme in thought patterns and arguments and revelation. And so I was showing in 1 Corinthians 15, 20 through 28, that Paul was grouping these thought patterns together and spinning off of each thought pattern, like a good guitar player in a band. He doesn't try to dominate the whole thing unless he's playing the lead for just a few moments, but he tries to, play off of the other members of the orchestra. And Paul was playing off of his own thoughts as he went from verse 22 through 28. And so that type of understanding or appreciation is called chiastic structure. So I was trying to figure out on my own the chiastic structure of those 8 verses. And apparently, Dale got a kick out of it.
I did.
So what was the highlight to you in that little effort?
I don't remember the wording. I suppose I could look it up. Let's see. Let me get to 1 Corinthians 15. I don't know how long it'll take me to get there. Oh, come on. What's going on?
That's a song. What's going on?
How come I'm not seeing anything?
Here, see if I can race you to the point. Got it.
Okay, let me come back to you then. Scroll down. Scroll down.
How about if I read it and you tell me to stop and make your comments?
Well, there was one particular verse that struck me, and I think it's possibly 27.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, whenever he may be saying that all is subject, it is evident that it is outside of him, God, who subjects all to him.
Mm-hmm.
It just struck me that verse is qualifying who the all is. All actually doesn't always mean all. It's
Right.
the all. It's the all of the context. And to say that all is going to be subjected under Christ's feet,
Mm-hmm.
well, obviously God's not going to, and that's what he's saying there. Now, whenever he may be saying that all is subject, it's obvious or evident that it's outside of God.
Yeah.
It's God who subjects all to him.
Right.
So I just that's something that just jumped out at me. That
Mhm.
wow, that there's a real good example of where all it's the all of the context, and God being subject to Christ is not in the context.
Right.
Anyway,
Take that, you Trinitarians. What? How do we fit this into our Trinity model? I don't know. Good luck with that. Yeah, so
you
in my
know,
effort to find the chiastic structure, starting with verse 20, I figured, and you can figure it out yourself, or because I don't have an exclusive on this, you can do it too. I figured that in verse 1 we have solution, problem, and expansion. In the next verse, we have not solution, problem, expansion. Instead, we have problem, solution, expansion. So the way that the material is presented is in a rhyme scheme or a structure that would sound poetic or feel poetic, forceful.
I'm confused by the word expansion. Can you
Okay, let's see if I can.
maybe run through verse 20 and see.
Yet now Christ has been roused from among the dead. So the dead are the problem, and the
Christ,
solution is Christ being roused.
right?
And so how many of the dead? Oh, well, Christ is the first fruit of those who are reposing.
It sounds like it's a um,
So I'm thinking it's all who have died and who are reposing in the grave. So that's why
Christ
I
has
called
been.
it expansion.
Yet now Christ has been
Should
roused
I call it
from.
inclusion?
I'm not sure. Yet now Christ has been roused from among the dead.
And the word dead there is plural. We know this, but I haven't brought it up yet. I do bring it up in the next verse.
The first fruit.
Right.
Christ is the first fruit, or
Which
is
would
it
also be kind of solution to those who are reposing, which is the problem. So it'd be a repetition there, a repetition of what he had just said.
almost
Christ,
sounds like another qualifier.
okay, let me think here. Yeah.
Christ has been roused from
Mm-hmm.
among the dead,
Mm-hmm.
the first fruit,
Of those who are dead.
the first one.
He is, yeah. And the indication of where we are headed in this grand purpose of God.
Mhm.
What a storyline. What a plot line. So if Christ has been roused from among the dead doesn't catch you as far as it being a dramatic turn of events, a dramatic revealing in the storyline, well, the next little phrase should get you. Christ is the first fruit of those who are reposing. What a great opening to this section. I can hear the Wild Wild West theme song. Hey, the first fruit of those who are reposing. Now we're talking.
Ba, ba, da, ba, 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 ba.
Welcome home,
Yeah.
Krishna. Nice to see you.
Hey, Krishna.
Yet now Christ has been roused from among the dead. So we've got the solution presented first. Christ has been roused.
Mhm.
The solution and then the problem from among the dead. And death is our enemy. Death is the enemy of mankind and God, technically.
But just don't get ahead of yourself. He's the first fruit, though. There's still more going on.
Right. This is just the announcement.
Mhm.
Good news, breaking news. This just in off the wire. He is the first fruit of those who are reposing. Anyway, so I didn't know. I admit that the word expansion is kind of weak. I'm not sure what else to do. Maybe you can help me out. But I'm trying to suggest that it's a complete thought and a complete revelation about everybody to whom this is addressed, and it's addressed to the dead, or it's addressed to that's Christ has been roused from among the dead. So he was with them at one time. He was dead. And, everybody's going to be dead before you know it. But it's not a problem because Christ has been roused from among the dead, and he is the first fruit of those who are reposing. So let me know if you come up with a better word.
All right.
Okay, verse 21. For since, and here's the problem. In fact, and how's that for a reinforcement that it is a serious problem? He says, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And don't we love it when we have an opinion that's contrary to facts? And when somebody brings up facts, we go, wait a minute. I'm not happy about this fact. I have my opinion. Okay, so here you go with the fact. Through a man came death. Yeah, okay, I have to admit it. Through a man came death. Okay. Through a man also comes the resurrection of the dead. So we get the problem is that through a man came death. The solution is through a man comes the resurrection of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
And the word dead here is plural. So because it's plural, I'm throwing in the word expansion to make sure you understand. Everybody's included.
Right.
And then verse 22, we go problem, solution, expansion. To an expansion in the concept of both the problem and the expansion in the concept of the solution. Okay, problem. Or even as an atom, all are dying. That is a big problem, right?
Yeah.
Nobody has a choice in themselves dying. Why do they die? Because they're an atom, like it or not. Thus also, the solution is in Christ shall all be vivified. And so they are expanded to the max because nobody is out of the view of this declaration.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 23. And here I find solution presented 3 times without the problem being presented as a contrast. Yet each in his own class. That's the solution is the first fruit Christ. The solution is there upon those who are Christ in his presence. And the solution is the consummation of the very topic we are talking about, of abolishing death in all the dead, those who are reposing, those who experience dying. Thereafter, the solution, the consummation, whenever he may be giving up the kingdom to his God and Father. Okay, so this, I'm thinking it expands and permanently establishes the end of the problem and the permanency of the solution. So, whenever he may be giving up the kingdom,
it's all been fixed. So now he's giving it up to his Father.
yeah. So this establishes the permanency of the solution and establishes the end of the need to discuss the problem. So he gives up the kingdom to his God and Father.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever he should be nullifying all sovereignty and all authority and power.
Now he's going back and explaining how he, scroll up just one verse, not verse, just one line there. Thereafter, the consummation, whenever he may be giving up the kingdom. So at the consummation, he'll be giving up the kingdom because he has nullified all sovereignty and all authority and power.
Right.
It's like he gives the end game, thereafter the consummation. Now he talks a little bit about what it takes to get to that consummation. Yeah. So.
And then in verse 25, the positive benefits that we saw early on is the resurrection, Christ's resurrection, and the resurrection of all that's promised through Christ's resurrection. And so down here at verse 25, it's not a positive benefit, it's a negative benefit, is what I'm thinking. The negative benefit is, for he must be reigning until he places all of his enemies under his feet. That we can rest assured in this timeline, in this plan, that he will be reigning. That's comforting. And that he will be reigning until. That's comforting. And that he will be reigning until he places all of his enemies under his feet. That's comforting.
Wait a minute. Negative benefit?
Yeah.
Whenever he should be nullifying all sovereignty, all authority, and power.
Yeah, that is a negative benefit. He's nullifying sovereignty, authority, and power.
Well, it's negative to the sovereignties, authorities, and power, but it's a positive benefit for the God's program. I mean, it's nullifying the need for sovereignty, authority, and power. Okay.
Right. It's a benefit, but it's revealed in a negative kind of way. Nullifying.
Gotcha. Okay. Nullifying.
Right.
Is considered negative, even though
it's not really a negative benefit. I just don't know how to express it.
Right. I gotcha.
It's really a benefit, but it comes about by removing something instead of adding something.
Right.
And then verse 25 has a removal also, for he must reign until he places all of his enemies under his feet. And then verse 26, I say it's expanding the negative benefit, the last enemy. It's expanding it to the max. The last enemy is being abolished, death. For he subjects all under his feet, the ultimate expansion of the negative benefit is the abolition of death because he subjects all under his feet. Now, whenever he may be saying that all is subject, it's outside of him who subjects all to him. And that's the proof of the negative benefit and the proof of the solution. That's what I'm thinking. In verse 28, now, whenever all may be subjected to him, then the Son himself also shall be subjected to him who subjects all to him. So I got 3 to him, to him, to hims. And remember in Romans 11:36 that all comes out of him and for him and into him. All is into him. So to him, to him, to him. I thought, wow, this is a good cadence. This is a chiastic power punch here.
All 3 of those 2 hymns is speaking of God, the Father.
Yes,
that's whenever all. Okay.
Now, whenever all may be subjected to him, then the Son himself also shall be subjected to him who subjects all to him. Okay, so this one, the third one is to Christ.
Right. I'm thinking the first one could possibly be Christ too.
Yes, you're right. The first one could possibly be Christ. But it's still powerful in my mind that he would
right.
have not a rhyme scheme, but a rhyme scheme. Yeah, a rhyme thought scheme. To him, to him, to him, that God may be all in all. And my note is solution, ultimate expansion to the grand conclusion of God being all, ... in all.
Cool. Love it.
Do you know how to play the blues on your ukulele?
Not really, but I suppose you could take almost any song and just kind of
Work around it?
chunk. I forget what it's not called chunk. When you kind of go to a chuk, 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 you could kind of blues up any song.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's dark in here, huh?
Yeah. You're scaring me, man.
Let me get some TV light on.
Oh, it's all right.
See if it helps.
So welcome, boys and girls, to the Savior of all fellowship. Love that little title, the Savior of all fellowship. I left a word over on Rob Reed's video today, comments. And I said 1 Timothy 4:10, actually verse 9, 10, and 11. I said, faithful is the saying, ... and worthy of all welcome, ... For this we labor and strive because we rely on the living God who is the Savior of all mankind, ... especially, but not exclusively, of believers. And I said, Rob, this is not a faithful saying among your crew, and it's not welcome among your crew. Not unless they stick the word exclusively in there, then they're happy with it, even though the word exclusively is not there.
Right. I thought it was interesting too. There's that verse that talks about, how's it worded? About being kind or pleasant or whatever to all, especially those
of the household of faith.
Right. It's the same idea there. So if it's to use their way of thinking, we shouldn't be kind or whatever the word is to all. It should only be to those of the household of faith.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay, Mac, let me tell you where I get this idea of the James Gang business.
Oh, is Mac in the chat?
Yeah.
I can't hardly look at the chat.
It's all right. So it comes from chapter 2 of Galatians, verse 12. And the King James in chapter 2, verse 12 says, and certain men came from James.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, bum, 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 bum. And they were singing the blues. Bum, 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 bum. Have you heard about the law? Bum, 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 bum. I got to tell you about the law. Bum, 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 bum. Are you worried about the law? Bum, 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 bum. You better be thinking about the law. And don't forget about circumcision. Oh, yeah. Because God's going to be pissed at you. Bum, 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 bum. If you don't care about the law. Bum, 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 bum. Anyway, so before the coming of some from James, old Peter ate together with those of the nations. Yet when they came back, when they showed up, he shrank back. Peter shrank back. And Nancy shows up. She knows when her name has been called. Her ears were itching.
There you go.
So, go ahead.
Did Mac ask about the James Gang, where that name came from? Is that what it was?
His comment was, for a long time, I thought Ace was talking about a motorcycle club called the James Gang. Turns out it's the name of a small offshoot of the Hells Angels, LOL.
Yeah.
Now, my reference is actually Galatians 2:12, when a bunch of boys from James, from the church in Jerusalem, showed up and started guilt tripping and browbeating Peter and Barnabas and the rest of the Jews at Antioch and making them feel terrible
Yeah.
for just drinking beer and eating donuts with the Gentile boys who were not circumcised and were revering God apart from the law. How dare you?
Yeah.
It makes you think that they brought their circumcision knives with them. They were ready on the spot. So any side chatters and lurkers, feel free to come on in. Even
Yeah.
you, Nancy.
Yeah. Don't expect me to carry the show at all.
Right, yeah.
I'm more like a one-hit wonder. Every once in a while, I'll pull something out that might be of benefit.
Uh-huh.
Not very often.
Okay, how about this for fun times? We'll look up the word law. Okay, just in this letter to the Galatian saints. Having perceived that a man is not being justified by works of law, except through the faith of Christ Jesus. Up next, we also believe in Christ Jesus that we may be justified by the faith of Christ. And you know what's amazing about the James Gang and the vast hordes of Christians? They have no idea what the faith of Christ is. And they won't stop talking about their own personal faith, but they don't know what the faith of Christ is. It goes right over their head that there is even a concept, that there is something called the faith of Christ, and that the faith of Christ accomplishes something marvelous and wonderful. But they will tell you about their faith. My faith is such and such, and I believe this, and I believe that. But they do not have sermons in their churches about the faith of Christ. They don't have testimony time about how the faith of Christ affected them, or especially not what the faith of Christ accomplished. We also believe in Christ Jesus that we may be justified by the faith of Christ and not by works of law, seeing that by works of law shall no flesh at all be justified. How about this for a grand question? If you obey the law, can you expect to be resurrected? Is there a guarantee? Use your words.
If you obey the law?
If you obey the law, is resurrection a guarantee?
I would suspect if you obey the law, there'd be no reason to die.
Oh, so you wouldn't even die. Seeing that, let's see if we're on the right side here. Justified by faith of Christ and not by works. Seeing that the works of law, by works of law, shall no flesh at all be justified. Let's see what else we got. Verse 19 of whatever chapter, I don't know where it is. I, through law, died to law, that I should be living to God. Hello, Sean Eagle. How are you? Use your words.
I was waiting for that. Uh-oh.
I through law died to law. What do you think of that verse? How do you die to law through the law? That's a strange concept and a metaphor and a figure of speech.
Yeah, I don't get the died to law, through the law. I can see where through the law he died because he couldn't keep the law,
Mm-hmm.
but died to law? I don't understand that phrase. Died
Well,
to
how
law.
about it's possible that the law can kill you, right? Like they wanted to stone that woman caught in adultery. They brought her to Jesus, threw her on the ground, and said, "What? The law says we should kill her. We caught her in adultery. What do you say?" And Jesus said, "Let he who was without sin among you cast the first stone." And he heard a rock whizzing by his ear. And he turned to see who threw it. And he said, "Mother, stay out of this."
But the phrase died to law makes me think, if I died to law, it makes me think that the law has no power over me.
Right. And so what if the phrase died to law means this? What if it means I am thoroughly acquainted with the law and I'm just not impressed? It doesn't really make a man just.
Right, right.
I'm bored to the law. Boom, 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 boom. I'm singing the James Gang blues. Yeah, they love the law, but they act like they just woke up yesterday and they're so excited about the law and they want to impose it on everybody around them. And could it be that the more you become acquainted with the law, the more you say, "Oh God, this is never going to work."
Yeah.
We're screwed. If this is the path of life and justification and vivification and redemption, we're screwed. Just like that woman caught in adultery, we're screwed. Lucky Jesus is the fulfillment of the law. And he had a bigger idea about her life than those Pharisees did. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, good evening, guys.
Good evening.
There he is. Howdy, Sean.
Hey, brother. I was gonna say, why were the? I still don't understand why the Pharisees were hanging out over there with the adult. How did they catch her in adultery? They must have been. Isn't that a sin to view it?
Yeah. What's the backstory? We're not told, huh?
Yeah, they conveniently leave that out, so it paints the Pharisees in a really kind of cool position, I guess, like they're the judges or something. That's weird. I always wondered that, though, in that one scripture.
So what if, let's explore the possibilities, okay? So somebody was in bed with that woman and one of the other Pharisees discovered the door was unlocked and he walked in on him and he was jealous. How dare you? I thought you were my woman. And she said, "Well, you're my Friday man, not my Thursday man. What are you doing here early?"
That's what I'm thinking. I think he was jealous. I think they were jealous.
Right. So they caught her diddling somebody else, and so they brought her to Jesus and said, "Get her. You're a holy man. Get her."
How about her husband walked in and said, "What is going on here?"
Yeah.
So he dragged her to the Pharisees.
Did she even have a husband, or did she have five of them?
If she was committing adultery, then she must at least have one.
Right.
Oh,
well,
that's right. Yeah, because it can't be adultery unless you got a mate.
Is it adultery if the one you're hooked up with is married, even though you're single? I don't know. I don't.
No,
I don't care.
that's kind of amazing though. That's something to consider. I never thought of that angle. Wow.
All right. So how do you die to law? So I was over on Dave's channel earlier today, and I had a little sweet prattling session with Dave and myself. And then after 45 minutes or an hour, this atheist guy comes in, and Dave puts up with more crap than I do, actually. So this
Really?
atheist guy comes in and he says, Ace, I have a question for you. Did man create God or did God create man? I said, thanks, Dave. I got to go. Did my question offend you? He says, did my question offend you? I said, no, it just bores me to tears. So I'm leaving. So speaking of died to the law, I'm guessing that we can say this is a grand figure of speech to where I know the law and I'm bored to tears with the law. It doesn't work. All it does is bring condemnation. That's the best it can do. It makes sin look even worse. And it doesn't even, it only helps even a little bit, because it doesn't help people be righteous. It helps them to die. Because there was a period of time from Adam to Moses, or from Abraham to Moses, 430 years when there was no law. From Adam to Moses, is that the right way to say it? When there was no law.
I think so.
No.
And yet people still died, even though there was no law. So the law comes along and it might help people to die because they get caught breaking the law and then they get stoned or crucified or get their head chopped off for breaking the law. But it doesn't help people obey or, live moral lives. It makes things worse when you tell somebody, don't think about yellow cows. Well, then you're thinking about yellow cows because the mind cannot process the negative. The mind cannot process a negative. And when you say, don't bring guns to school, well, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about bringing guns to school.
For I, through law, gave up on the law because I couldn't do it, and there's no sense doing something that all it does is bring me death. What's the point of it?
Right. For I died to law. How did I die to law? I died to law through the law. That I should be living to God. Oh, so we should complete the sentence. How dare you, Dale, not complete the sentence? Do I sound like a James Ganger?
Yeah, that's a sin.
How dare you not complete the sentence? Boom, 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 boom.
The research of the professional flesh wrestler.
Yeah. So how did I die to law? Well, becoming acquainted with the law helped me to die to the law, that I should be living to God. With Christ, I have been crucified. Yet I am living, no longer I, but living in me is Christ. Man, this is a whole new ball game. It's so much more beautiful and on a higher level of, shall we say, consciousness? Shall we say, breaking through the barriers of the access of the universe? Cosmic shift, baby. With Christ, I have been crucified. I didn't have anything to do with the crucifixion of Christ. I didn't even know I was there being crucified with Christ. It's a revelation from God that I have been crucified with Christ. And wow, this changes everything. Oh, verse 21. I am not repudiating the grace of God, for if righteousness is through law, consequently Christ died gratuitously. What you got, Sean?
Well, it's just that it's the end, coming to the end of yourself. That's what I think. And so I was always thinking of like it's resting in the finished work, like resting. I don't know. I think there was a period of time in my life where I felt condemned for every little thing I did. And then it's like little by little, more and more, I got awakened to the idea that Christ was really acting in my life. And
So what if we put a question mark right here and break up this sentence? Is righteousness through the law?
No.
Why?
Well, yeah, it brings you to the end of your shit, but it's not the real righteousnesses of Christ. And it
If righteousness,
it meets the righteous requirements of the law. Correct?
if righteousness was through the law, would that not be repudiating the grace of God?
Yes, exactly. Because you wouldn't need any graciousness from God if you could indebt God to you, if you could obligate God to save you because you kept the law perfectly. All right,
It kills you. It kills your efforts. It's like once you tell somebody, like you said, don't do this, curiosity and human nature, you're going to do the opposite of what somebody tells you not to do. But isn't that the difference between God's or we were just studying this the other day, the difference between God's intention and God's will, his will, what he has planned, but then his intention is the backside that you don't know is coming, but it's a result of that. I don't know how he put it. Belima and I don't know. It was Belima and there was and Thelema. Thelema. Thelmaloo. Yeah, Belima and Thelmaloo. Yeah, isn't that kind of what you're talking about here, Ace?
I'm lost. What are we talking about? I am not repudiating. What if he had said, I am not repudiating the law? That's the James gang. They're the ones who are not repudiating the law, but they are repudiating the grace of God.
I had to look up the word repudiating.
Yeah, what'd you find out?
Deny the truth or validity of. Refuse to accept or be associated with. So I am not refusing to accept or be associated with the grace of God.
Not refusing, right? Okay, so those boys from James, they come along and they want nothing to do with grace. They're all fascinated with the law, morality, doing good behavior. It's almost like they're 12 years old and they just they just learned, hey, there's this thing called the law. We can accomplish it, yeah. But by the time you put some years under your belt, you go, oh yeah, well, this thing is more complicated than I realized. But thank God for the grace of God. For if righteousness is through law, we have a problem. And the biggest problem is that Christ died in vain.
Right. Just keep the law. Why have Christ die if you just got to keep the law?
You can't keep the law, though.
Exactly.
It's fucking impossible. I don't. No, what's that? When I do what I hate, it's not me, it's sin living in me. Oh, what a wretched man that I am! Who shall deliver me from this body of death?
The purpose of law, as I understand it, is to drive us to Christ. But people take the law and want to substitute the law instead of Christ.
For Christ, yeah. The law, actually, it's the tutor that brings us to that place.
Right.
That's the way I understand it.
Yep.
And then when the tutor gets you to school and you're starting to learn some shit, and then grace shows up, now you don't need a tutor to take you to school anymore. You're in school.
Yep.
Christ, you're in that school now, the school of grace. I don't know. I'm probably not making any sense, but that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, you don't make any sense.
That's good. Oh, hey, look who's here.
Yeah.
Great.
That Alabama girl.
Great.
Okay, so if I give you an answer, if I explain this enigma,
sorry,
will it go over your head? Will you dismiss it outright? Will you accept it? Will you rejoice in my answer? Will you allow your eyes to see that there is something about grace that we should consider and be appreciative to God for? Because the concept of grace is the favor of God shown to those who deserve the opposite of favor. And you can't tell me, Nancy, that you don't deserve the opposite of favor. You are like us. You're self-righteous with your words and pretend that you obey the law. But you've sinned in the last 27 minutes. No, I haven't. Okay, in the last 27 days, you've sinned. No, I haven't. Oh, come on. Okay, so your question is, why was it told us that John the Baptist's parents were considered righteous? They were. They were in the Bible, Nancy. There are grand concepts that are spoken of absolutely, and there are grand concepts that are spoken of relatively. There's relative truth and absolute truth. And it is an absolute truth that no one is righteous. Not really.
Not even one.
Not even one. But it is relatively true that John the Baptist's parents were righteous compared to the other people in that region of the country.
Just like Job, right? Ace. Job was considered righteous in his area, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was more righteous than his friends, but he wasn't bragging on his righteousness. And so John the Baptist's parents were righteous compared to the other knuckleheads around them. But in the absolute sense, only God is righteous, only Christ is righteous. In the absolute sense, there are none righteous among us humans. We are in need of salvation and justification and conciliation. And these things were accomplished by Christ's work on the cross. So, number one, you have to consider that there are many things in the Bible, throughout the Bible, not just this righteousness business, but there are many things that are spoken of in the relative sense, and they sound contradictory when you compare them to some place else where it's spoken of in the absolute sense. So, relatively speaking, God hated Esau. But in the absolute sense, God is love. See? It doesn't do any good to address this woman here. I think you are making up your own gospel, Ace, and ignoring the four gospels that tell us that John the Baptist's parents were considered righteous. Yes, I just agreed they were considered righteous compared to the other knuckleheads around them at that time. But it's a relative statement. It's not an absolute statement concerning the grand purpose of God. There's many things going on in the Bible all at once. We have plot lines on top of plot lines and subplots and, a murder mystery going over here and an adulterous affair going on over there. And how does it all work out together? Well, turns out that all is out of him and through him and for him.
Abraham was considered righteous for his time as well. He believed God, and it was considered righteousness at that time.
Okay. Onward, boys and girls. Oh, she's still got something to say. No one said compared. Those are your words and opinions. You don't count. That's exactly right. I don't count. But obviously you do. See, you are righteous in this live stream of knuckleheads, and we are unrighteous. So, wow. We tip our hats to Nancy Bobancy. You don't count. Thank you very much for helping me remember that grand truth. Is it relatively speaking that I don't count, or is it absolutely true that I don't count? Onward.
Oh, here's the next answer, chapter 3.
Oh, foolish Galatians. Let's finish up with chapter 2, verse 21. I am not repudiating the grace of God. So the James gang comes along and they do repudiate the grace of God, and they are all orgasmic about the law. And they don't know. They're not acquainted with the law enough to know that it's just not going to work. That there are none righteous. No, not one. For if righteousness were through law, Christ died in vain. Go ahead, JG.
Ready, go.
Ready, go. Yeah.
Ready, go.
Ready. I might be getting out of the James gang. And I'm getting into the virtue gang.
The virtue gang. Wow.
Yeah.
Do they have higher standards?
Yeah, a little bit. Instead of promoting law, we're going to promote virtue, and we're going to snub those who don't promote virtue and those who are not graceful enough.
Wow. Is it like a card carrying club?
Well, I think that you guys are in that club.
We're in the virtue club already?
Yeah, you're in the grace gang.
Yeah.
Which is the virtue club.
Is that what they call it over there, JG? The Grace Gang?
Well, I'm not actually in the James gang, so I don't know.
Oh.
I was floating around, like I was visiting them, you know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't have the inside information. I don't know what they do behind the scenes, like when you guys are doing the Concordant Brother thing. I don't have privy to that information, but
I just think it's funny to call us the Concordant Brother thing.
Why? Because it exists?
Well, we do, we do our best to study the scriptures with the tools that, the best tools we can find and have and use. And okay. So
how many girls are in the group?
There's Debbie and Donna and Jody.
Oh, nice.
Nancy is a secret member. She only comes in through the back door when the music's really loud and the disco lights are playing.
Catherine's in. Catherine comes in.
Oh, Catherine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking, but I was actually being serious because I'm starting to see this in a new light. Like I'm starting to see the relevance of the Mosaic law versus virtue and grace. So I'm saying this in a joking way, but I'm also being serious about this. Would it be so bad to focus on virtue through grace? Would that be acceptable? Is that something that you practice?
That sounds lovely.
Oh, cool.
So is that like 613 laws, JG, or something?
No, Sean. I'm saying moving away from the Mosaic law.
No, that's what I'm saying. Wasn't there 613
Yeah.
Mosaic laws or something like that?
Yeah, it gets into some
Yeah.
strange dietary laws and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah. I could never give up pork, man. Are you kidding? I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah.
No way.
So what have you got on virtue? Because that sounds like a lovely word that would include the behavior of those who humble themselves, if you can say that, or just who are totally appreciative of God and revere him apart from law.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, for instance, moving away from the rigidity of trying to abstain from something because it's a lawful or legal matter. Don't do this, don't do that, and focusing on acts of love which contain virtues. A more of a natural flow from the idea of loving behavior rather than a restrictive focus. That would be one way to say it.
Sounds good.
So
I
you
like
Sounds kind
Yeah.
of like using the law lawfully.
Using the law lawfully?
In my life, if I can interrupt you, Dale.
Sure.
In my life and experience and my journey of faith, my mind races through all the people that I have known in the faith and maybe even out of the faith. And I would say there are two people that I would say were virtuous. And one would be Irma Appleton and the other would be Dean Huff. Irma Appleton never taught a Bible class that I ever saw. Dean Huff, that's all they did was teach Bible classes. But both of those people had such a beautiful spirit of humility and love. And Irma Appleton changed a lot of lives. She opened up her house in the 60s and 70s. She was like the queen of the Jesus movement on the East Coast in Virginia. And she didn't even, nobody even knew what she was. She didn't have an official title. She just had a 3-bedroom house and like 30 or 40 people sleeping there on the weekend.
Whoa, that's a big sleepover for a 3-bedroom house.
Yeah. They were sleeping in the backyard, several of them, all over the living room floor. And she had a reputation for dragging us out there to do street preaching in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And she had a reputation for converting over 300 drug dealers, and they ended up becoming preachers.
Wow. That sounds crazy.
Wow.
And but when I look and compare her to Dean Huff, they had the same spirit about them. They were just humble and gracious, and they didn't brag any bit on keeping the law. And I don't remember Irma ever busting anybody's chops about anything. And if you stayed at her house, there was no list of rules on the refrigerator. Just people did things that needed to be done. Sweeping the floor, washing the dishes, doing a dumpster dive to bring food back to feed all the people.
Wait a second. So you were part of that, like those sleepovers?
Yeah.
The Jesus movement.
Yeah, there's something about that rings true. They're just people doing stuff for the sake of doing things right without being told to. Sounds good. I guess maybe sometimes things go wrong in that situation, and then people kind of get set back. But you can't stop everything, right?
Yeah, I've done it.
Yeah.
I did at least 1 or 2 shows on this channel with Irma Appleton in the headline.
I remember the name. Yeah.
And some people left comments that said, "Oh, I was part of Irma Appleton's gang way back. Thanks for bringing up this. She was a blessing to me."
Nice.
And yeah, and I remember lots of Christian preachers in my grand journey of faith who were not gracious and were downright self-righteous and persnickety, and you knew to keep your distance from them because they were going to find fault with you no matter what you did.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like I don't like the law guy. I don't like that guy with a law personality. But it's like I don't mind being him in a way, but I definitely don't like him. So what's really going on there, right? If I don't like the guy that I don't mind being, there's a problem there.
Let me make sure I'm hearing this right. You don't like yourself for being a law guy?
That's pretty much what I'm getting at, right? Like it's not so bad when you're being the law guy, like you're being the righteous guy with your arms folded, like you guys are doing it wrong.
Yeah, that image is perfect with your arms folded. I
Right.
get you.
But then when that guy shows up at your party, you're like, yeah, I don't like that guy.
Yeah, you move away from him.
I don't like him.
And you don't know why.
Yeah, it's just something about him. But then sometimes, like when shit goes wrong, like you want him there though. There's that aspect too. You're like, that guy's cool. I wish that guy was here right now because there's too much shit going down. So there's like a balance in there, it seems. But like the Irma situation, when people are just sweeping up and cleaning up and doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing, that sounds ideal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember not one Bible study at Irma's house, but there was a lot of activity going on, a lot of discussion between the saints who showed up there and those who were seeking. And over the years, in that first chapter of John where it says, and the Word was God, and God was the Word and all that stuff, and that word is Logos, and the Logos was God. Over the years, I've begun to think, I can't prove this biblically or theologically, but when it says that Christ was the Logos, I'm thinking that we could say that Christ was the conversation, because all of our life is about having these conversations in order to find God.
Yeah.
So Christ is the conversation. And
Yeah, the
that's really what
Logos-
happened at Irma's house. There was a whole lot of communicating going on that she did not control. It was God
Were
talking
there
through the
people from
saints.
different? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Were there people from different religions there, or did it happen to be all centered on scriptures from the Bible?
It was, there wasn't any Bible study, although there were, it was all Christian.
Yeah.
And there was no other religions. It was just Christians and drug dealers and schizophrenics.
Good mix.
She was famous in Virginia Beach, Virginia, for helping schizophrenics to the point where the hospitals would bring schizophrenic people over to Irma's house and drop them off. They didn't know what to do
Wow.
with them.
That's crazy.
And the sheriff's department would bring schizophrenic people to her house and drop them off. They didn't know what to do with them.
That's dangerous.
But Irma knew what to do with them. And
Yeah.
I'm guessing she just changed their diet a bit and talked to them and treated them with respect. And have you ever heard about the crazy makers?
The people that I've dealt with all throughout my life? No.
Well, way back in the 60s, in the mental institutions, they would bring these people, and they were crazy. And at the hospital, they would settle down and get better, behave better, and they have more of a sane mind until the families came to visit. And then it would get these people all jazzed up and mental issues again. And so the people at the hospital would call these families crazy makers. And it kept happening until the people at the hospital figured out it wasn't just families that visited. It was families that had a dominant mother and a wimpy father.
Yeah.
And so they started calling the mother the crazy maker. This dominant, overbearing mother.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing when when the sheriff's department and the hospitals would drop off these schizophrenic people, they settled down because Irma and her crew did not make them crazy. It was just a lot of love going on there. Love without saying, I love you.
Oh, the best kind.
Love without love bombing.
Yeah. That place sounds wonderful. I'm getting some imagery from the picture you're painting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I really I look back on those days in the late 60s and early 70s as kind of core in my soul. And I fancy that the Ace Theo channel is like an Irma Appleton living room.
Oh, okay.
That is crazy. I was just thinking that, Ace. My God.
So there's a lot of conversation going on here. And God, let's see, and the Word was Christ, or the Logos was Christ, and Christ was the Logos, and the Logos is the conversation.
Yeah, the logos, the meaning. Yeah.
I am not repudiating the grace of God, for if righteousness is through a bunch of law, then consequently Christ died gratuitously. And then Sean Eagle said, uh-oh, look out, here comes chapter 3. Oh, foolish Galatians, who bewitches you? And I'll tell you who bewitches you. Those certain men who came from James. You know what's so bewitching about those guys, about the James gang and the law people, and they sound so right, and you can't argue against them. Because who could argue against, oh, you should obey the law? That sounds right.
No.
Yeah, it's
But-
a tough argument, right? Where you say, no, you shouldn't.
Right, you don't want to say, no, you shouldn't obey the law. That's not the point. The point is that Jesus Christ was graphically crucified, and there's something bigger going on here than keeping the law. Something way bigger. Something that is like veiled, and God has to pull back the curtain for you to get a peek at it. What? It's Christ risen from the dead, and this changes everything about everything. Number 2, this only I want to learn from you. Did you get the Spirit? Did you get the joy? Did you get the happiness? Did you come on into this by works of the law? Or by the hearing of faith? And hearing, I'm guessing we could substitute the conversation, because you can't hear unless there is a conversation. I'm just using that word loosely here.
Man, how many times do I have to make that ring?
Well, you got
Well.
my attention now, Kate.
No, that was George.
That's right. He's going to have to wait.
How's it going, George?
Yeah, I'll be at the
Hey.
airport in 10 minutes.
I'm already sitting
Kate-
right here in the waiting room.
Cade, you got the Magnum PI voice. I don't know. It's really weird.
That's
I think
good.
of Magnum PI when you talk. Yeah, it's kind of a trip.
I'm trying to remember the opening soundtrack of that. Dun, 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 dun. How'd it go?
Yeah, it was bad. It was badass.
Yeah, it was.
It was a badass show for a lot of years.
There was another good show. It had the $6 Million Man in it, and he was like a I don't know, like a bounty hunter for hire with some law firm or something. I forget what was the name of that. It always showed him in the bathtub sitting out there in the
Lee Majors.
Yeah, Dale, do you
Yeah.
remember? He had
No,
a
I
cigar in his mouth, be sitting in the bathtub right in the openings, the opening of the show every time.
Yeah.
I can't remember it. It was his name. I know it was his name.
George Papard. You thinking of
The A-Team?
the A-Team?
No, Lee Majors was the star of the TV show.
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea.
That was the
Yeah.
$6 Million Man.
No,
That
this
was
was after.
yeah. This was after that.
I was in love with the bionic woman. So
Yeah, Lee Majors got some of that Farrah Fawcett flesh, didn't he? For a few years. He kind of fleshed out with her for about 9 years or something. Wasn't he married to her?
maybe he gave her the butt cancer. I don't
They
know.
had that. They had that robot
Yeah.
too. Herbie, the robot, in there. That robot guy.
God,
Remember Robbie the robot? Oh my God! Years ago, I used to see old clips of that shit.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. I used to say that all the time. That used to be one of my lines I hijacked. I'd say it in class when students were messing up. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
That's Buck Rogers, right?
Oh yeah,
That was Lost Planet or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. It was an old one. Well, how about Land of the Lost? Marshall, Will, and Holly. Remember the Slee Stacks?
Sure do, man. That was cornball, wasn't it?
I'm
That
going
was
to
the
change the
best.
name of this show to Nostalgic Hour by ACO.
Sorry, Ace. I'm sorry. I
I was
heard
going
that.
to say this only
heard
do
him
I
in the-
want to ask you.
I heard
about.
him in the back.
Oh no, Under Gray Skies, the Fall Guy.
The
That's
Fall
right.
Guy. The Fall
The
Guy.
Fall Guy. You're right. Oh
That's
my God.
it. It was a great show.
I don't remember squat about that show. I don't know.
There it is.
Well, all right, back to the content here. I'm sorry for driving the wagons around the wrong.
We're getting to know Ace, man. The special
Bonfire.
cues. Yep.
This only I want to learn from you. Did you get the Spirit by all of your law keeping? Or let me ask you, just a personal question, didn't all that law keeping make you depressed? And you didn't have the Spirit at all. You were just kind of muddling through. You were worried. And guess what? The James Gang's Blues has worry as the second verse. Are you worried today? Boom, 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 boom. How come you ain't worried? Bum, 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 bum. You better worry. Bum, 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 bum. You better worry.
I know that song.
Because we got a gospel of bad news. That's fucking funny.
Did you get the Spirit by works of law or by the hearing of faith? And I'm guessing that you really get the Spirit by a wonderful conversation in which you can hear of faith. So foolish are you, undertaking in spirit, are you now being completed in flesh? So look at this. In verse 3, he is equating flesh with law. Dude. So much did you suffer vainly, since surely it is also fake and vainly if you're all about the law and flesh. Verse 5. He then who is supplying you with the Spirit and operating works of power among you, did you get the Spirit by law or by the hearing of faith? According as Abraham believes God. Abraham got excited about the promises. Man, that's great. I bet Abraham would have been welcome at Irma Appleton's house.
Ace, I had a question about this really quick about verse 6. Does that mean that grace was actually working in the Old Testament time with Abraham in that particular incident? Would that be fair to say?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because it was a gracious thing that God didn't require, for him to jump through all these hoops. He just gave him a promise, and the promise was believed. That's the whole exchange.
So you could say that was a Romans thing. It is a gift of God, not of works. And Abraham just simply believed what God said.
That's it.
Okay.
And
That's what
I would say this belief would even be an excitable belief. Wow, okay. I'm 100 years old and you're going to make me a daddy?
I know. That was amazing.
That's what faith is. Isn't that what faith is? Believing something that is yet future. You don't see any evidence of it yet. You just believe it.
100%.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let's see where our next little law verse is. Okay. Verse 10. Whoever are of works of law are under a curse. That's true, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When of all the James gang people you have ever met, wouldn't you say that they're kind of like under a curse?
Whoa.
They're not happy.
They're hoop jumping.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. That's
Constant
push-ups. That's push-ups, cartwheels, jumping jacks.
Translated into Wednesday prayer meetings.
Yeah, all the calisthenics between prayer meetings.
That's
squares.
That's not even going to justify you in the end anyway.
Yeah, even hopscotch won't get you there.
Oh, and then you got to schedule in the pastor's retreat paid for by the tithing members who don't get vacations.
And you got to build the golden coffee shop on marble floors too.
And you got to hire all the volunteers that are going to work free for you at that clothes giveaway store,
Oh my God.
To clothe the homeless so it looks good.
Yes. And open up the food pantry too.
God warned people. He warned those Hebrews, if you want a king, man, they're going to do this to you. They're going to do that to you. They're going to make your wives servants and slaves. If you read that whole list, I'll be damned, man. It is exactly what happens to a family that joins a church led by a king called the pastor. He makes your wives freaking free work and labor. Bring your daughters down there. I mean, it is disgusting. And you're paying for it. You're paying. God dang, man. I got to start a church. Damn it.
Whoever are on works of law are under a curse. For it is written, a curse is everyone who's not remaining in all the things written in the scroll of the law to do them. Wow, that's a lot of guilt tripping, man. That's a full-time job to have to pay attention to all the things written in the scroll of the law.
Modern wives are pretty good at this, though.
Oh yeah,
Book,
they keep,
keeping count of
But-
what you've done right, wrong.
Oh, you mean
wrong.
the filing cabinet in the back with all your rights and wrongs?
Yeah. They've been trained well on that. They know how to do that.
Oh my God.
You guys know you guys can't even if you have a backpack on now, a lot of the national parks won't accept your cash dollars anymore. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Digital.
Oh yeah.
Ramping up to the digital dollar, huh?
Is that amazing?
Yeah, just won't be too long.
No, it's not going to be too long now.
now that in law no one is being justified with God is evident. For the just one by faith shall be living. And last time we went over this, verse 11 here, I capitalized the just and the one because I believe it's a vague reference to Jesus Christ because he is the only just one.
That's what I meant when you asked me that question earlier, Ace, about the law. Is the righteousness of Christ is what I meant to say. I wasn't talking about people outside of that. I meant that Christ's righteousness is able to keep the law. He meets the requirements of it, is what I meant. I don't know if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I meant earlier.
Oh, hell, you're wrong. I'll take it.
Right on. Right
You're
on.
wrong.
I broke the law. Good. I
Any
broke the
guy that
law.
invites me to do that, I'm just going to do. I don't get to do it often, so I'm going to jump on the opportunity.
There you
It feels
go.
good.
Yeah,
You're wrong, dude.
Cover me with all that grace, man. I need more of that.
You're right. You're right.
No, I'm not.
Now the law is not of faith, but he who does them shall be living in them. Christ reclaims us from the curse of the law. That's great. That's a great promise. So we don't reclaim ourselves from the curse of the law. Christ reclaims us from the curse of the law because salvation is the work of God and you cannot save yourself. Christ has to do it. How does he do it? Oh, by becoming a curse for our sake. For it is written, accursed is everyone who's hanging on a pole. This is a complex and melodic picture of what God is doing behind the scenes. Because in front of the curtain, we see the law. Behind the curtain, we see grace and God's accomplishments in Christ's work on the cross.
And Dale, I just wanted to tell you, your pits smell wonderfully fresh. It's great deodorant that you have
Oh,
on.
what is that anyway?
It's great, isn't it? I need to know what it is.
I want to know how you. I want to know how you get the hockey. How we can get the hockey smell into the show.
It's hockey players' sweat.
Hockey sweat.
Hockey sweat.
Look at Kit.
You've been
Is
playing.
that kid-
You've been playing hockey again, Dale. I thought you stopped that in like 4th grade.
In my mind, as I watch it on the tube.
Yeah.
God, Cade, you got the full-on beard going, dude. Oh my God.
Can't shave, man. I can't hardly
No, I
touch
know,
my
but-
face.
No, I mean it's like grown a
Oh.
lot since the last time I remember seeing you.
Yeah. I'm gonna wait until I can like tie a strand around my big toe sitting down. Let it get long.
It's like a cartoon character.
Yeah. Pappy.
Yet God has graciously granted it to Abraham that through the promise, oh, that's a period. Yet God has graciously granted it to Abraham through the promise. Okay, I threw in an extra word there. It's a wonder we can communicate at all. So what the hell is this? I don't understand it. Let me back it up. Oh, 430 years. I love this phrase. Okay, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this I am saying, a covenant having been ratified before by God, the law having come 430 years afterwards, does not invalidate the grand operation of God so as to nullify the promise. For if the enjoyment of the allotment is of law, it is no longer a promise. Wow.
Man.
So
Wow.
promise, grace, and faith seem to be joined at the hip. They're all wrapped up in one beautiful package. Promise, faith, and grace. Go ahead, Kate.
What? No, I agree with you.
I think it was me.
Go ahead.
It sounds to me that the first covenant came 430 years before what people typically call the first covenant.
Right. And this covenant, this promise that God gave to Abraham, what could Abraham do to fulfill? Nothing. Just stand back and watch. You're going to be a daddy. What?
Well, yeah, he had a little activity to do with his wife, right?
It was a miracle before Viagra.
He actually got two activities with Hagar first.
It was a double miracle.
Didn't Sarah kind of doubt for a little while? Is that what led him where he finally said, "Look, go take Hagar to yourself," or something? Was she going into doubt or something that caused him to make that quick decision with Hagar?
Well, she
One would
laughed
think.
to
Is that
begin
kind
with.
of
When
Yeah,
she
she
first
didn't
heard
believe
it,
it.
she laughed.
yeah.
You know, I
Yeah,
think
all the chicks in there seem like they don't believe. Look at what happened to Lot's wife. She turned into a pillar of salt. Abraham's wife, didn't believe. Just Lot's wife didn't believe. He had shit with her. Why don't you curse God and die?
yeah. Did God tell Sarah this too, or did Abraham go and tell Sarah, or did God say it in front of Sarah too?
I think that Abraham told Sarah.
I suspect as much.
Yeah.
That's why she laughed.
I would have been like, "Hey, I get you and what you're doing, but you're going to have to tell her because when she's not going to get in this bed with me. How am I going to prompt her?"
Get her liquored up.
Probably start looking forward to it too after you heard that and start thinking about it. It's like,
Get her
damn,
liquored up. Dale, you're funny.
liquored up.
Got to give her some of that lubricant, baby.
What then is the law? What a great question. What is the law? On the behalf of transgressions was it added, and that's a lovely, interesting phrase. So transgressions were not just in existence, they needed a help. They needed a helping hand. So on behalf of transgressions, the law was added. So transgressions come along and say, help, I need some help. And so God says, all right, I'll help you. Here's the law. On behalf of the transgressions, it was added until the seed should come to whom he has promised, being prescribed through messengers in the hand of a mediator. Now, there is no mediator of one, yet God is one. Wow. Now, when I just said that there's two things going on, there's the thing going on in front of the veil, and then there's the thing going on behind the veil. And, all we can see is the law and how beautiful it is if we could only keep it. But there's something going on hidden from our eyes, which is God's operation of grace and no offer of grace. Now we get to verse 20, and it's like an explosive revelation that says God is one. This is the core message of everything we believe and everything we should believe. because in fact, we don't even know how deep this little phrase is. God is one. 3 words. Wow. And the best we can do on this channel is say, well, all is out of God, through God, and for God, and that also means God is one.
Would that kind of be like the partition being torn down, and then the two become one?
I think it was always.
Go on.
No, like the partition between where Christ became the mediator between the whole deal, and the two became one. Is that part? I don't know where the hell that's at. Is it Hebrews or something?
It's Ephesians. Ephesians.
Ephesians. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what that's saying right there?
I have no idea what this means, but I know it's bigger than me. God is one. This is the core revelation that's ununderstandable, but yet we want to understand it. What does this mean? And the closest I've come to lately is something that Ben Abraham said. If this means anything, God is one, it means that God is not divided.
Yeah.
If it means anything, it means there's not 2 gods, an evil God and then a good God, and they're battling it out. God is one. And if God makes a promise, well, he doesn't need a mediator. There is no mediator of one.
Right.
And maybe this one should be capitalized. I'm going to do that because I can. Oh, the word mediator is capitalized. There is no mediator of one. Wow, that's interesting.
There it is.
So the word mediator is a reference to God. The word one is a reference to God. There is no mediator of one. He is all in himself and able to keep all of his promises, which he has promised.
No, I wasn't asking about the Ephesians one. I was talking about when Christ was crucified, the curtain was torn from top to bottom.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting thing.
That's what I was talking about. Wasn't that when he became one? Isn't that the where he became one right there, right? Correct?
I don't
know. Or am I crazy?
I don't know. Something happened there to cause the curtain to be torn from top to bottom.
Torn from top to bottom, and then in the what was it, the temple or something? Isn't that the inner where the high priest used to go with a rope tied around him with the ephod on? They would go in there with the 12 stones on their breastplate, and their shit had to be straightened out or they were smoked. And they just pulled them out with a rope.
Right.
Didn't that put an end to the animal sacrifices?
Everything, yeah. Because Christ is the living sacrifice. It was the end of it all. Then the curtain was torn from top to bottom. The way I understood it. Rent, I think is what they said, not torn, rent, something.
Yeah, that's a dramatic word for torn. No accident. Torn implies kind of an accident, but rent means you purposely rip it in half.
Purposed. That's powerful.
Man, so many Christians believe that, there's going to be a red heifer again, which is contrary to this. Apparently, they're not putting it together that there is no need for any more animal sacrifices. And they're Christian.
I think there's good reason to believe that the animal sacrifices are going to start back up again during the millennium.
Yes. Well, I was wondering too, isn't the Antichrist going to allow the Zionists, the Khazars, to start worshiping in a temple again? Are they going to rebuild a third temple, or is Is that the third temple that they're talking about in the millennial kingdom?
Yeah, I think that's what that temple is.
I don't know.
The
Maybe
one in Millennium.
maybe some haven't recognized or ran into, not the belief that there's going to be a rapture and all this tribulation and all that stuff. That's only like 130 years old, I believe. Maybe it's 100 and it's not too old. And there's others that say, I forget the exact name, but it's others believe either that's already happened, like everything Christ said about on the Mount of Olives. Within 60, 70 years, we don't
80,
hear about it. It's 80 War of the Jews, which was the bloodiest massacre. It was morbid. What I think was it Babylonian? They let all the worshipers back in. They would let everyone in, no problem. But once you went in, you were shut in those walls, and there was blood up to the bridle of the horses down those. When you read the history of it, it was brutal. So once you got in there, and then you were just in there starving, competing with all your other Hebrews, killing each other. It was massacre. Yeah. There's different beliefs on how that's interpreted, when that's going to happen, if it happened. So see, a lot of people are still waiting for that blood up to the bridle thing and all of that, but yet it already happened. Just as he said.
That temple that they're all worshiping at right there, they call it the Temple Mount. It's Fort Antonia, which is a 10th Roman Legion garrison, and they've been praying to that Wailing Wall and claiming that's a temple now for generations, or since when they were given the city back, half of it went to Jordan, half of it went to the Jews, or what they're calling themselves Jews. And they worship at that temple. They really believe that's the Temple Mount, and it's not the city of David. It's it's an artifact.
We'll all figure it out.
Verse 21. Is the law then against the promises of God? And what promises are under view at this moment in time? It's just the promises made to Abraham that he would be the father of many nations and he would have a baby. So, is the law against the promises of God? No, the law didn't show up for 430 years after this promise business. Is the law against the promises of God? May it not be coming to that. For if a law were given that is able to vivify, really, righteousness were out of law. So now we've moved to a different arena of promises. At first, we were talking about the promise given to Abraham, and now this is a hint, verse 21. The hint is that in Christ, all will be vivified, because that's really the grand subject that answers all of our questions. Is God able to vivify, and will he vivify all in Christ? Yes. And so if the law was able to vivify righteousness, it would be out of law. But, so even Paul practices the word but the scripture locks up altogether under sin, that the promise out of Jesus Christ's faith may be given to those who are believing. Hey, Dale, you made a comment earlier today about, so what if we are believing at the moment? That doesn't mean that all won't believe.
Okay.
Right? Can you go on about that again? La da 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 da.
I don't remember talking about it. Well, kind of like the Rob Reed thing you were talking about a few days ago. We must believe. Well, yeah, we must, because we will. if we don't believe right now, that doesn't mean we won't
Mm-hmm.
in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And so some can be and will be saved by sight, like Saul on the road to Damascus. He wasn't known as a man of faith at that time, but he saw, and thus he couldn't help but believe.
Right.
And also, Saul is the chief of sinners and the model through which God is going to redeem. He is a pattern of those who are about to be believing. And so it's easy enough to see that some believe just by the grace of God gives them faith, and some will believe because it'll be obvious when they're standing before God. Every knee will bow then. It'll be easy to believe then.
And over in the just want to shout out real quick. Nancy made the comment. I wanted to ask her. She says, I don't take Paul seriously in Thessalonians. I wanted to throw out Ephesians. How about Ephesians?
But the scripture locks up altogether under sin, that the promise out of Jesus Christ's faith may be given to those who are believing. They don't gin it up themselves. It's given to them. So we're going through, boys and girls, if you just got here, we're going through the book of Galatians, and we're looking at all the places where the word law shows up, because he just talks about law, all through the book of Galatians. And he does eventually get to the point toward the end where he uses the word law in a double entendre kind of way. It's really cute. We'll get there in just a bit. Now, before the coming of faith, we were garrisoned under law, locked up together for the faith about to be revealed. So the law does have a great purpose. It locks us up for a time period until faith is revealed in us. 24, so that the law has come to be our escort to Christ. Well, thank God for the law. I knew it had a purpose. It has come to be our escort to Christ, that we may be justified by faith. Now, at the coming of the faith, we are no longer under an escort, for you're all sons of God through the faith in Jesus Christ. And up next is verse 4 of chapter 4. Now, when the full time came, said Paul, stroking his beard. Now, when the full time came, God delegates his son, come of a woman, come under law, that he should be reclaiming those under law, that he may be getting the place of a son. No, that's wrong. It says that we may be getting the place of a son. So let's see. Now, when the full time came, God delegates his son, come of a woman, come under law, that he should be reclaiming those under law, that we may be getting the place of a son. And it's so intimate that we can cry, Abba, Father. Now, seeing that you are sons, God delegates his spirit of his son, the spirit of his son, into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father, so that you are no longer a slave. Okay, so when you were under law, could you say that you were a slave? Wouldn't be far out of context. So
find
you
it
were no
interesting. Sorry, find
Go
it
ahead.
interesting. Delegates the spirit of his son into our hearts.
Wow. What do you got on that? So it's not the spirit of law. It's not the spirit of browbeating, guilt, shame, manipulation, and the need to be right. It's the spirit of his son. You like that, Cade?
Man, it's great. All men need to learn sign, shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right. It's the sign. You'll hear it. You can't unhear it. Once you hear that, you'll hear it every time.
So that you are no longer a slave, but a son. Now, if a son, an enjoyment also of an allotment from God through Christ, but then, indeed, having no perception of God, you were slaves of those who by nature are not God's. And that must be a reference to the James gang. You were slaves of the James gang because they were browbeating you with shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right. You were slaves of those guys. And they're not even God's.
And they apparently taught all of the women around the world how to do this sign thing. Those bastards.
What's up, guys? On behalf of the James gang, I want to say happy Passover.
Thank
Passover.
you so much.
It's Passover night.
Uh-huh.
Got my wine out. I'm drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Unleavened wine.
Yeah, well, I hope so. It says layer cake. It's the kind, so it must not be unleavened.
And you know, if you wake up in the morning and remember anything about this last Passover, you've sinned. You have not.
Yeah, it's one of the commands. You got to get drunk at least one night a year.
Once.
The most
Stay
holy
off
night
the
of the
internet.
year.
Just don't post anything.
This is it. I mean, this is the night that you know that God rescued him from Egypt. It's a night that Jesus spent in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? The Last Supper, stuff like that. It's a pretty holy night. The full moon is out. It's an eerie looking moon too. You look at that moon. It's all weird looking. Pretty scary.
So what do you know about the build up to Passover?
I don't
Because
know.
we just did a couple of episodes about it the other day. About Pharaoh and how God hardened his heart. And even before that, there was another buildup. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery and then lied about the situation. And it was a great evil that they did on Joseph and Joseph's father.
Yeah.
And then years later, when they finally hooked up, they were ashamed. And Joseph said, "Do not be angry with yourself, for you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good."
That must have been a pretty big relief. You know, because they probably felt pretty bad about that. So to hear that, imagine that you did that to your brother, and then to hear that after all, he was like, "Don't be angry with yourselves. God meant it for good." I mean, that's got to be a pretty big relief, dude.
Right. And so God meant it for good. And then they became slaves of Egypt. God meant it for good. So they were slaves 400 years, right? And God meant it for good. And then they were, and then the 10 plagues, and God meant it for good. What is the good? It's very much contrasted with all the evil that precedes the whole story of the Passover. The Passover is not, I can't believe that you would think it's just one event. It's a whole bunch of dominoes toppling each other over. And God meant it for good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing, you know.
Yet now, knowing God rather being known by God, how are you turning back again to the infirm and poor elements for which you want to slave again anew? So once you're become acquainted with grace and God's operations of grace, why would you want to get back into the law and works and shame and guilt and insinuation and manipulation and the need to be right?
Yeah, but once you're in the law, once you're abiding, you're not breaking it anymore, then all you've got is, pride and boasting and compliments, and nobody can hold anything against you. If you're within the law, then nobody can blame you or shame you or insult you or do anything because you're righteous.
Do any of the Christians ever shame you?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yep.
So you take a James gang beating. They're dirty.
Yeah, dude. I suffer for my brothers and sisters.
I feel so sorry for you.
No,
Yeah.
don't be, because I'm not. Jesus said to be happy. Happy are those who get persecuted or insulted or slandered for him.
Well, what do you know? So are you scrutinizing days and months and years and seasons, like verse 10 says?
I don't know, because I don't know if I'm going to try to convince you guys to observe the Passover and eat nothing but unleavened bread for 7 days. That's you guys' choice. So I guess I don't think I'm doing that. If I do it for myself, I think maybe Paul was talking about doing it to others, scrutinizing whether they are doing the Sabbath or the Passover or these days and months and seasons.
I'm curious, Dirty, do you put the blood on the doorposts of your house? No?
I don't think the 10th plague happened. That's just my own personal theory. I don't think God did that.
I'm glad you said no about that blood thing, because I'm pretty pissed right now. I had a lamb stolen last night and I was going to use it. So if you got to it before I did. Got it right on my backyard. I had it tied up right beside my 10-speed.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing that happened, because Deuteronomy says you're not allowed to slaughter a lamb in any place.
My ignorance, it wasn't a lamb. That's right.
You shall not slaughter the Passover animal in any place that the Lord your God is giving you, except the temple.
Well, I thought I was going to avoid taxes if I put the red thing above the door. So I thought I needed a lamb, but I got it now. Hey, pup. Come here.
What is it? What do you want, Pop?
No, pup. I'm moving to the dog. I'm considering dog now. Get the lamb.
So that's God in reverse. Dog.
Yeah.
God.
Did you guys just hear Ace say that God hardened Pharaoh's heart? I just wanted to point that out. Every time I hear that, and I just don't ever want to let the opportunity go by, that it's impossible to have free will with God doing that. But anyways.
Oh, there's this thing called figure of speech where
you learned that from me.
So you're flipping that around. You got a mirror out now, brother. What's going on with that there, varmint? Using an ace tool.
Hey, I got the ace in the hole, man. I ace up my sleeve.
Oh my God.
That's why I hang around,
Or if you don't like that it's a figure of speech, it's also an ellipsis. You ever heard of an ellipsis?
You lost me there. That's as far as I go. Figure of speech. I don't know. No ellipsis.
I might not even be enunciating that correctly, but I know it's one of the things I've learned here that I've never learned in 50-something years of reading scripture to others. let alone me.
So, Dirty, I'll tell you about a figure of speech that's pretty cool. We all use it, and we don't even know that we're using it. It's called a figure of retention. So what this figure of speech is we retain lingo from an old bygone era, because the new era is so new that we don't really know how to talk about it yet. And so whenever somebody says they drive a car, that is a figure of retention, because you don't really drive a car, you control a car. You drive a team of horses from the cowboy days. You drive a team of
So
horses.
that's where drive came. Drive a car. Yeah.
Right. It's just a figure of retention. It's a figure of
Okay.
speech called a figure of retention.
Okay.
And you can see this in Paul's writings, because once in a while he talks about the new covenant. And that also is a figure of retention. He's borrowing this covenant phrase from the Old Testament. But the deal that we have with God now is not technically a covenant. It's just hard to describe what's going on between God and us. And so this new covenant, see, and the old covenant is when God says, if you do this, I will do that. So that's a covenant. But with this new covenant, there's no, if you do this, I will do that. It's all God doing the whole thing.
Okay, so it's kind of like the first promise to Abraham, the first
Kinda like
covenant,
that.
because
Yeah.
God made a covenant with Abraham saying, I'm going to multiply you and give your offspring these lands. And then it's just a one-sided thing. It was just, there was no requirement need to be fulfilled.
Right. And so Abraham is our model for understanding what God is doing in this era of grace. And so this era of grace, God is doing everything and not requiring anything from us. We call it a new covenant, but that's just a figure of speech. It's called a figure of retention. We're borrowing old language to describe something so new that we just don't even have the words to describe it yet.
Okay, so, say that's true. Is there, like, if I turn around from my evil and start doing good deeds, will those good deeds earn me like extra rewards in heaven?
It's all about you, huh?
Well, yeah. I'm selfish, I admit.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't go down that road. That road kind of bores me to tears. So,
All right.
But why are you do you know why you're selfish?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Because I'm an individual. So,
Are you implying we're all selfish? I'm an individual.
in a way, yeah.
But why are you like that?
Well, I strive to be as selfish as I can, 100%. I strive to be 100% selfish. I haven't quite made it there, but I try. You know.
But seriously, have you ever thought, like, why do you struggle with selfish?
Me, I want to be selfish. Because because then, to do good. Because it's good for you, right?
Why? Tell me how.
Because you'll get everlasting life.
If you're selfish?
Yeah, if you're 100% selfish, you'll get everlasting life. Because if you're selfish, you're going to do everything in this life that's going to earn your way into everlasting life. And so what you're going to do is you're going to give all your money to the poor. You're going to do all these good deeds.
Well, that's not the
being
definite.
selfish.
Okay. Well, that's good.
True selfishness. I'm not talking about selfish in this life where you don't even think there's an afterlife and you just do everything you want as if there's no afterlife. So you have to take the afterlife into consideration and then be selfish with that in mind. You know what I mean? Because that's the goal you want. That's what's the best for me, is to get into everlasting life and have rewards and a good time,
So you really don't have to love him or anything.
Oh yeah, you do. That's part of it. If you're selfish enough, you're going to do everything it takes to get in. So you got to love God. You got to love your neighbor. Got to love yourself.
got to do the law.
Yeah, got to do the law. Got to keep
But
the law.
I thought by the works of the law, no flesh shall be justified in his
Wow,
sight.
that's just something Paul said, though. So you can just throw that out.
Nancy, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Sweetheart, you're going to love that. Rewind it.
Dirty Varmint and Nancy were twins, separated at birth.
Yeah,
You know,
You guys
You
need
know-
to go to lunch together. I
Yeah,
bet
she's
you
my
Varmint,
have.
sister, man.
Yeah.
Varmint, I don't think you fucking believe a word that you're saying. You just come in here to get rides out of people. I just think you're full. I think you're full of shit. I think you really understand that you're screwed under the law.
No.
I think you really got a full understanding that you're fucked under the law. You ain't got a prayer without Christ, brother.
Well, that's true. I don't got a prayer without Christ, but he said to keep the law, so that's what I'm doing.
He told Hebrews to do that, man.
Yeah, but he also told Gentiles too.
Where?
When he talked to the woman at the well, she was a Gentile. She's the first person Jesus talked to was a Gentile.
We're all gonna be adjusted, brother. So you think that you're gonna be one of the wrenches, one of the nuts that got away from the wrench, but I just don't think so.
Well, in your view, I'm going to heaven anyway, so I can't lose,
You can't lose.
But
God's
if you're
a Lord.
wrong,
God-
and you can lose, then
I can be wrong, but God's never wrong, brother.
I know.
Come on.
Okay.
I'm going to
little
err on the side
housekeeping.
of caution.
Little housekeeping here. Stephanie says, I never heard of this James gang. I guess I need to listen a bit. So let me catch you up on who the James gang are. We're going through the book of Galatians. And in chapter 2, verse 12 is the place where we get the idea that there is such a thing as the James gang. Because in chapter 2, Paul is talking about how the brethren at Antioch were just having a grand old time, enjoying and revering God apart from the law. And then Peter showed up, and he was having a grand old time with the Gentile boys and girls, enjoying a beer and a bunch of donuts and slapping them on the back and just having a grand old time. And he was a Jew from Jerusalem, and they were a bunch of bad boys from Antioch. And so he was having a grand old time. And in verse 12, it says that at the coming of some from James, Peter, he was eating, fellowshipping with those of the nations. But when they came in to the church in Antioch, he shrank back and severed himself because he was afraid of the circumcision. That's who the James gang is. They're all about works, law, guilt, manipulation. They're the circumcision guys. And Peter was having a great time till they showed up. And then he freaked out because he knew he had to go back to Jerusalem where they were from, because they were from James. And James was the grand poobah at Jerusalem. And these guys had, if they didn't have exact authorization papers to go Judaizing, then they at least had his tacit approval. He didn't bust their chops for going into Antioch and Judaizing. But anyway, so verse 11 says, now when Peter came to Antioch, here he's called Cephas. When Peter came to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, for he was self-censured. This is a big dramatic verse.
Why is that self-censored italicized like that? Doesn't it in the other translations it says like he was to be condemned or he was to be blamed?
The concordant literal version has it self-censured.
Self-censured. What does that mean?
Well, you know what censured means.
No, like
Julian Assange
legitimizing.
Julian Assange right now is in jail because the government wanted to shut him up. He was a
Okay.
newspaper reporter, and he was reporting on stuff that pissed off the government, so they censored him. They put him in jail so he can't talk to anybody and write his stories anymore. Self-censored is when you shut up and you don't share the truth, the joy, or anything. You self-censor. You pull away.
Okay. Okay. You
Okay.
silence yourself.
You
You know
silence
what?
yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
when Peter came to Antioch, I almost punched him in the face
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
Self-
Peter was self-censored. For before the coming of some from James, he ate together with those of the nations. He was having a great time with us. Yet when they came, he shrank back and severed himself, fearing those of the circumcision. And the rest of the Jews also played the hypocrite with him, so that even Barnabas was led away with their hypocrisy.
Okay.
that's rotten, man.
Pause there. So he's
It's
saying
rotten.
that the reason he and Barnabas parted ways was because Barnabas was led away with the hypocrisy of Peter.
Yep.
Okay.
That could have been an influencing factor, but it doesn't say so right here.
Yeah. But
This is
okay.
just the story of what happened on that particular day in Antioch, that Barnabas was brown-nosing the circumcision boys.
Yeah.
He wanted to get on their good side.
We were getting
Mhm.
Barnabas. We were getting them.
Man, do you see how bad? Do you see how awful what James did? I mean, do you understand just how cruel?
James is my
And-
hero.
But I'm saying he's a sinner too. I mean, I'm
No,
not
he's
down on
James
him.
the Just. That's his name. James the
But
Just.
can you see this act? I mean, this would be like somebody pretending to be a friend of slaves.
Well, we
And
don't
then
really
as soon
have.
as the opposition comes in, they jump up and join that side out of their own. That's
Yeah, I could see
disgusting.
how that would be bad in Paul's eyes. That would be
Hell,
bad. in
Paul would
Paul.
be Martin Luther King in this example if we were doing it'd be that gross. No wonder he's going to get mad.
Yeah, but we don't necessarily have Peter's, response to this. Peter never mentioned anything about it, so we don't really have the both sides of the story.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. They even had a meeting. They got and Peter actually and all of that stuff happened, man. They even parted ways kind of amicably and admitted, I've got this message to these people. I'm going to go and do that. And obviously, you've got this message to the Gentiles.
Right. So we find that in verse 7. So let's back up here so we can get Dirty Varmint up to speed and Stephanie. Thereupon, after the lapse of 14 years, I again went up to Jerusalem, taking Barnabas to Jerusalem with Barnabas, taking Titus along with me. Now I went up in accord with a revelation and submitted to them, to James and those muckety-mucks, those heavyweights in Jerusalem. I submitted to them the evangel, which I am heralding among the nations, yet privately to those of repute, the muckety-mucks, lest somehow I should be racing or ran for naught.
Ooh, that's a big verse.
But
That's
not
a big
even
one.
Titus. Yes, it is. But not even Titus, who is with me, being a Greek, is compelled to be circumcised at that time.
Yeah.
Yet
Yeah.
it was because of the false brethren who were smuggled into the meeting, who came in, by the way, to spy out our freedom, which we have in Christ Jesus, that they shall be enslaving us.
Signing us.
Yikes.
Signing
They
us
wanted him
over
to.
and
They
over.
wanted him to tell people to get circumcised, huh? And
Not
that's-
only circumcised, but all the law. You got a lot of hoops to jump through to be approved by the James gang.
Well, yeah.
Verse 5, to whom not even for 59 minutes and 59 seconds do we simulate by subjection, that the truth of the evangel should be continuing with you. Now, from those muckety-mucks reputed to be something special, what kind they once were is of no consequence to me. God is not taking up the human aspect. I don't care that James was the half brother of the Lord. Screw him. For For to me, those
James.
muckety mucks submitted nothing to my evangel, but
I
on
know,
the
I know.
contrary,
Damn.
I am well versed in this passage here.
on the contrary, perceiving that I have been entrusted with the evangel of the uncircumcision,
Uh-huh.
according
Whereas
as Peter was
Peter-
entrusted
Yep.
with the evangel of the circumcision. For
Yeah.
he who operates in Peter for the apostleship of the circumcision operates in me also for the nations.
Mm.
Knowing this, those muckety mucks, knowing the grace which has been given to me, old James and Peter and John, who are supposed to be pillars, they give to me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship with a little bit of reluctance,
Yeah, definitely.
that we indeed are to be for the nations, yet they for
There
the
you go.
circumcision.
I know. That's the claim.
Perfection.
Yeah, but it's too bad though, because Acts chapter 15 just pretty much debunks everything he said there. I know it. It's tough because the James gang actually gives a response in Acts 15, and they tell him, "Hey, man, Peter said I'm the apostle to the Gentiles, not you." And then they sent Paul a letter to deliver to the Gentiles to say they don't need to get circumcised, but they do need to follow all these other commandments. Blah blah blah.
Well, what a bunch of shit right there. You don't
Yeah,
need
so
to get, yeah.
You're
Well,
right.
yeah.
The James gang is opposed to Paul's gang.
Oh, they'll sign the hell out of you if you cross them.
So what? So I have a question. Why aren't they in Jerusalem right now, sharing the circumcision gospel? Then
Well, that's what Peter was the apostle
Aren't
to
you-
the Gentiles.
aren't
So
you guys? Aren't they commanded to go to Israel?
no, they were commanded to go to the nations. Jesus commanded all the apostles to go to every nation on the earth, all the 12 apostles.
Yeah, but they will go to the nations during the 1,000-year reign of
That's-
Christ.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
not
yeah.
now. And that was that's not
Well,
now.
Peter went to all the nations, though. He
I
went
think
up
that's
to
translated
Rome and
the known world. The known world.
yeah, the known world.
When
I
they
guess
went
not the
to-
entire
they
world.
actually went to the known world.
Yeah, they did.
Because they didn't have knowledge of the rest of the big shipping ports and everything, and they accomplished that.
Yeah,
And it's over.
I agree with that.
And
They
they're not to
accomplished
do it again. No one's supposed to repeat that over and over. He told one certain group of people, they went and did it. This is the problem with reading the wrong damn mail.
Hey,
Now,
Dirty.
Yeah.
Dirty. Which channel do you go on that gives you the most airtime?
You? No, I don't know.
Whoa, you had to admit that. I could feel the nudge.
No, I mean I've been on Ryan's channel. I can go on there for 8 hours if I want to, and just
Yeah, because he's pretty much the king of the James gang at the moment.
yeah.
In-
But
in this corner.
well, the James gang is arguing amongst themselves because I argue with them all the time.
So you would admit, Varmint, that you come on here and you just totally feel the love.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. Yes, I do. You know,
Well, one thing you
That's
must,
kind of hard to resist, ain't it, brother?
do you
See,
hear
you're
us?
giggling because
I think I think I'm going to convince one of you guys to come over to Christianity. You know, you're going
Oh
to be.
my God!
You're going to start doing good
Jeez.
works. You're going to say, you know what, I can do it. I can do it. If
Whatever.
Dirty Varmint can do it, I can do it. It's
Oh
easy.
God!
The
That
problem
mentioned
is,
something.
Dirty, everybody on this channel, all of our crew anyway, not Nancy,
There
and
you go.
not Yahoo, but all of our crew, we spent years and years and years and years and years in Christianity as a part of the guilt-tripping James gang.
Oh,
I spent 20 years in that stuff.
really? In the
25
James
here.
gang?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
used to be a minister. Got paid for it.
yeah.
Went on
Yeah, but every
cruises
once in
with
a while,
tide money.
Ace, you probably secretly do, good deeds every once in a while, just in secret. I'm sure you do. So
You know what,
Don't
Dirty?
tell anybody.
I won't tell anybody.
Dirty, you mentioned something that made me think, and you're right. I don't see over the 2.5 years or whatever being amongst the people on this channel, there's not much fighting here amongst ourselves, if any.
No, I like that
Oh.
too.
Well, there's a little doctrinal differences from time to time. You know, like one person came on and they wanted to be praised because they were a Jew. You know what I mean? And
They didn't get it here, did they?
Well, no, they did. They talked themselves into a corner, and then another member of the body came in that knew a little bit about it and kind of really painted some reality down. And of course, that individual was very upset. And so I don't know how long it'll be before we'll hear that, a repeat of that. I'm a Jew. I've got my Jews suit. And, you know, I'm not against Jews at all, brother. But I am a goyim to the fucking max. I am literally a pork rind saved by grace. Okay. And so these come on. So there you go. There's my special for a minute. Okay.
Yeah, but
that happened though. That did happen on this channel, and it caused a little dissension for a bit, but it got ironed out. And I just kind of shared, hey, there's none righteous, no, not one. We're all together in this, baby. We ain't getting out. We're in it to win. So,
yeah, well, that's the spirit I like. We're in it to win it. Never
well, no,
give
because
up.
God, not because of you or me or anyone else, but because God doesn't ever lose. That's all I'm trying to say. God doesn't lose. You know, it may appear that way. But yeah, I had my time in the church, so I understand the good works and all that. Isn't it exhausting though? The cartwheels and hopscotch and jumping jacks and all that shit. I mean, isn't it a little bit, kind of exhausting after a while? Well, I guess you got your wine. You can relax at the end of the workout, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Under Grace has a good verse here. Acts 15:1, and certain men which came down from Judea taught the brethren and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah. Hey, we're in Acts 15 now. You might have to bring it up on the screen. I got a video on this. You should pull up my video and we'll just watch. It's about 10 minutes.
Oh, hell no. Because we're blind disciples of Paul, don't you know? So
I
we're going
know.
to stick to this Galatians business here.
Okay. Well,
come on, guys, this way. The cliff's over here. The cliff's over here.
I think I'm going to jump down. I got some wine to drink. I got some. I think.
You snuck in unawares to try to lean a few people into your
and enslave you under the yoke of slavery or whatever.
What a beautiful guy! What a beautiful person, man.
Dude, if anyone wants to go with you, I would celebrate. I'd be like, cool.
I want to enslave you with some wine and some unleavened bread. You know, tonight's the feast of unleavened bread. So the Bible is like a loaf of life-giving bread. And Paul is yeast. You just got to toss Paul right out, and then the rest of the year you can have Paul. But at least for 7 days in a row, you got to have no yeast. Baby.
It's saltines.
So you got to remove Paul for 7 days a year, and then you can have him for the rest of the year.
I bet you there's more saltine crackers
unleavened
sold
bread,
on this Passover in America. We ought to look that up than any other time.
When is Ishtar? When is celebrating Ishtar? I mean Easter, Ishtar. When is that? Is that like in a day or two or what?
On the 9th.
On the 9th. Okay.
Well, I booked her. She's coming over here like 2 days before, so I didn't want to have a dirty Ishtar sex goddess.
Aunt Esther is coming over.
Yeah.
From Sanford Son.
And she's a freak.
I don't understand this, Yahoo. That's wild. I would have expected a better defense explanation of universalism. I didn't think we were trying to explain or defend universalism.
We're not universalists.
Yeah. So if I didn't know I was trying to explain it, but if you want me to, I'll give you a quick rundown. The very quickest rundown on universalism is 3 words. God is one. Let's see if you can figure that one out. Christ reclaims us from the curse of the law. Okay, let's see. 430 years. The law does not invalidate. It is no longer a promise. Oh, yeah. What then is law? Okay, on the behalf of transgressions, it was added because transgressions were just not transgressy enough. We need more transgressions because we contend on this channel that sin is a prerequisite to salvation. It is not an impossible obstacle to salvation. On behalf of transgressions, verse 19, the law was added until the seed, Jesus Christ, should come, to whom he has promised, being prescribed through messengers in the hand of a mediator. Now there is no mediator of one yet. I just told Yahoo, yet God is one. Is the law then against the promises of God? Oh, don't be silly. For if a law were given that were able to vivify, if you can make yourself rise from the dead, unable to die again by keeping the law, well, then righteousness were really out of the law. But the scripture locks up altogether under sin, that the promise out of Jesus Christ's faith may be given to those who are believing. For before the coming of faith, we were garrisoned under law, being locked up together for the faith about to be revealed, so that the law has come to be our escort to Christ, that we may be justified by faith, and that is the faith of Christ. Now, at the coming of the faith, because there's a definite article in the Greek text, the faith, at the coming of the faith, we are no longer under an escort, for you are all sons of God through the faith in Christ Jesus. And I think we're up to 4. Now, I am saying, inasmuch as the enjoyer of an allotment is a minor, nothing is of more consequence than a slave, even though he's the master of all. But as long as he's a minor, he's under guardians and administrators until the time purposed by the Father. Do you see that word purpose, Yahoo? Because I was over with you and Eric talking about the purpose of God. Here's another grand verse mentioning the purpose of God, couched in a sentence using a figure of speech. We're under guardians until the time purposed by the Father. And who is the Father? We know. Thus, we also, when we were minors, were enslaved under the elements of the world. Now, when the full time came, God delegates his Son, come of a woman, come under the law, that he should be reclaiming those under the law, that we may be getting the place of a son.
Boy, I just wanted to point out, Dirty, that, we train and equip ladies over here to sign for us. So you're getting it right now.
Who's signing?
You go, Stephanie. He's getting tore up. It's funny. But
Okay.
He's tearing back. He's doing a good job. He's trying to come back now. Anyway, sorry, Ace. Go ahead. We got 2 shows going on here. Verse
9. Yet now. Ooh, I love these yet now verses. Yet now, knowing God, rather being known by God, because the truth is, do we really know God? Oh, hell no. We're groping for God. And the truth is actually that we are known by God because God is the owner of all and the creator of all and the savior of all. And we think we know God, but the grander truth is that we are known by God. Yet now, knowing God, yet rather being known by God, how are you turning again to the infirm and poor elements for which you want to enslave again anew? Days you are scrutinizing, and months and years and seasons, I fear for you, lest somehow I have toiled for you vainly. Become as I, for I am even as you, brethren. I beseech you, in nothing do you injure me. Okay, verse 17. The James gang, they are jealous over you. They see your freedom. They see that you are enjoying God and revering God apart from the law, they are jealous over you. Not ideally, but they want to debar you that you may be jealous over them. Verse 19, little children mine, with whom I am travailing again, until Christ may be formed in you. Verse 21, tell me, you who want to be under the law, are you not hearing the law? It's a mess. Verse 24, we got an allegory here. And Dirty Varmint, if you're still listening, an allegory is a grand figure of speech wrapped in a story, hidden inside of a donut. Which is an allegory, and it's an allegory about these two women that gave a child to Abraham. And one woman gave a child which generated into slavery, and the other woman was a free child, a child of freedom. And the allegory is that the Jerusalem above is free, but the Jerusalem that Paul was dealing with in the first century, they were all about sign, S-I-G-N, shame, insult, guilt, the need to be right, manipulation, browbeating. But the Jerusalem above, metaphorically speaking, the Jerusalem above is free. And that's who is the mother of us all. And that is another figure of speech, Dirty Varmint, that the Jerusalem above is the mother of us all. Lovely figure of speech. Verse 29, but even as then the one generated according to the flesh, that is the boy that Hagar gave to him, it persecuted the one born according to the Spirit. And that's exactly what we see today. Even as then, one group persecutes the other group with browbeating, shame, guilt, manipulation, and they also have an extreme need to be right. Thus also it is now. Verse 31, wherefore, brethren, we're not the children of the maid, but of the free woman. Chapter 5, verse 1, for freedom Christ frees us. Verse 2, if you should be circumcising, Christ will benefit you nothing. Verse 3, I am attesting again to every man who is circumcising that he's a debtor to do the whole law. Exempted from Christ were you who are being justified in law. You're falling out of grace. Verse 8, this persecution that we receive from the James gang, this persuasion that we receive from the James gang is not of him who is calling you. It's a bunch of blabbermouths with slick tongues. Verse 10, now he who is disturbing you, the James gang are a bunch of disturbers. They come along and they rob the saint of his freedom by browbeating, guilt tripping, manipulation, and shall we say, twisting the scriptures. They don't even know Paul. They don't twist Paul's scriptures. They don't even know Paul. They don't spend any time in Paul's letters. They don't race to Paul's revelation. I asked Eric the other day when I was over there with Yahoo, have you ever preached a sermon on this Romans 9:11 where it mentions the purpose of God? Imagine in their group that they would have a sermon titled The Purpose of God. They can't do it because they don't know the purpose of God. They only see as much as the circumcision boys see. And you want to see how far the circumcision boys see? When you race forward, they only see the nation of Israel getting their kingdom during the 1,000-year reign of Christ. When you race backwards, look at the letters of Peter, James, and John. As far back as they can see is Abraham. Peter, James, and John never mention Adam. They are so damn short-sighted. They don't know the purpose of God. Paul is the only one who goes back to Adam, and Paul is the only one who goes forward to the point where Christ gives up his kingdom and no longer rules forever and ever. They are. Go ahead.
No, keep going. They are. I was just gonna.
They are disturbers. They will disturb you.
I just want
Now-
to point out anyone that might be listening to you go on like this. You sound real stern and this and that, but seriously, no one's angry with these people in the past or the people just like them in the future. No one's angry at them or mad or thinking that they're scum. And I believe, because I was once one of them, most are extremely sincere about what they're believing. They think God's told them to be like this, and this is what you need to do to please God. So there's a part of it that I can find something a little honorable in it, but at the same time, it doesn't mean their swords are not sharp when they use them.
So Yahoo says, please show us how you schooled Eric and me. I didn't school Eric and you. I did my best to hold my own. I asked you questions about the purpose of God, and Eric spent oodles of time saying, well, what do you mean by God? He never did address what is the purpose of God. And then he weaved his way around to glorify human free will. Human free will is the opposite school of thought as the purpose of God. So Eric doesn't know what the purpose of God is, but he knows everything about free will. Even though the word free will does not show up in the New Testament one time, and it only shows up one time in the Old Testament, but it's mentioned as the name of a sacrifice.
Free will offering. Free will
Yeah, it's
offering,
called
right?
free will offering, but that is not a clear teaching that humans have an uninfluenceable will that's totally apart from the power and design and purpose of God.
You can add on to your exercise there that you handed out everyone about, hey, go and ask next time you're talking, go and ask them what is the purpose of God, and listen. You could then do another one, and right when they're done babbling or going on, when they're all done with that and they have an answer, just say, well, what's your purpose? And I bet you they can articulate the perfect answer for their purpose. I bet you it would be perfect. They'd be clearly defined. Here's what I'm doing, who I'm doing it for, to get to this end. And it will end up in heaven.
Verse 11. Now I, brethren, if I am still heralding this circumcision crap, why am I still being persecuted? Because Paul and the churches that Paul established were persecuted by the James gang. Consequently, the snare, and the Greek word there for snare is scandal, the snare of the cross of Christ has been nullified. And I'm telling you, Yahoo, you can go back and report to Eric that the cross is a scandalous notion, that we were saved strictly by the cross of Christ. We were saved 2,000 years ago before we were ever born, and that our belief does not save us. Our belief only helps us to enter into the enjoyment of the salvation that is already actual. Christ didn't make it possible for us to be saved. He made it actual. And every time I ask a Christian about these matters, what did Christ accomplish on the cross? They say, well, Christ made it possible for you to be saved. That's bullshit. Christ saved us when he died for us on the cross. And if you insist that he only made it possible, well, then how about this? Was it possible to be saved before Christ went to the cross? Yeah, it was possible if you obeyed the law. Well, then if it was possible for Christ, for anyone to be saved before the cross and possible after the cross, then there's no need for the cross, because it's a waste of time. But it's a scandal. It is a snare. The cross is a snare to the teaching of Christianity and the James gang. And I have asked many times of Christians to name 10 things that were accomplished by Christ's work on the cross. They are clueless. And we should be able to rip off 10 things easy, even though there are many more things that we can say were accomplished by Christ's work on the cross. But we should easily be able to run down and say, justification for all happened on the cross. Conciliation of God's enemies happened on the cross. Reconciliation of the universe will happen through the blood of the cross. Salvation happens through the cross. And even the tearing down of the wall that divides Jew and Gentiles happened on the cross. A new creation was created on the cross. The old humanity was crucified on the cross. We should be able to rip those off easily and know what at least some of the things that was accomplished by Christ's work on the cross. And the cross should be our central theme, and we should not shut up about it at all.
Death was abolished. Death was abolished too.
Wow, I forgot about that. See, there's so much that happened. The cross is the central theme of the whole message that we should have as believers. It is the centrality and the universality of the cross. It affects the whole universe. Colossians 1:20 says, through the blood of the cross, the whole universe will be reconciled. And it's a scandal. It's a snare. It pisses Christians off to dare suggest that your salvation doesn't have anything to do with you. You can't destroy it. You can't help it. You can't impede it. It is the work of God.
I love how you said it. I can't help it.
So when the James gang comes along, verse 12, would that those who are raising you to insurrection had an accident with their circumcision knife. Bite me. For you were called for freedom, brethren, only use not your freedom for incentive to the flesh, but through love be slaving for one another. For the entire law is fulfilled in one word: you shall love your associate as yourself. Now, if you were biting and devouring, which the James gang loved to do, they love to bite and devour each other. They come over here and do it, but they do it among each other. Bill's channel, Praise I Am, they just love street fighting over there. And it all boils down to you suck, no, you suck, no, you suck, no, you suck. I am saying, walk in the Spirit, and you should under no circumstances be consummating the lusts of the flesh. Verse 18, now if you're led by the Spirit, you are not still under law. And all these things that are helped, remember the scripture said, we just read it, that the law was given because the trespasses needed a little help. It was given on behalf of the trespasses. Okay, so here's a list of the results of the law: adultery, enchantment, drunkenness, rivalries, blah, blah, blah. And those things, those that commit such things will not be enjoying the allotment of the kingdom of God. But when it comes down to love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, meekness, there's no law about those things. There's no positive law that says you must be kind, you must be good. There's no law about that. All the law is built on negativity. Don't be coveting. Bear one another's burdens and thus fulfill up the law of Christ. Now, here is the verse I promised you an hour ago that we would get to where Paul is using a double entendre, a wonderful figure of speech. Christ came to destroy the law and our enchantment with the law. And yet here, toward the end of his letter, he's using the phrase, the law of Christ, as a grand figure of speech, poking a little fun at the whole subject. And he calls it the law of Christ. Bear with one another's burdens and thus fill up the quote unquote law of Christ, the grand principle of Christ, who bears our burdens and the burdens of all. And that is the message of the cross. He bore the burdens of all. Verse 10, consequently then, as we have occasion, we are working for the good of all, yet especially for the family of faith. Whoever wanting to put on a fair face in the flesh, well, these guys are compelling you to circumcise, only that they may not be persecuted for the cross of Christ. The law and the circumcision boys and the Judaizers hate the cross of Christ. And if you get involved and embrace the cross as the grand operation of God and the means and fulfillment and actuality of our salvation, they will not put up with that. They will persecute you, and they don't want to be persecuted for the cross of Christ. For not even they who are circumcising are maintaining the law, but they want you to be circumcised, that they should be boasting in that flesh of yours. Now may it not mine to be boasting except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom the world has been crucified to me, and I to the world. Wow. Let's do that one again. In harmony, 4-part harmony, since we got four people here. Now may it not be mine to be boasting, except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, to whom the world has been crucified to me, and
I to the world.
And verse 16, and whosoever shall observe the elements by this rule, peace be unto them, and mercy also on the Israel of God. And I highlighted this verse because the James gang is not the Israel of God. The Israel of God is those boys in Jerusalem in the first century that were minding their own P's and Q's, and they were not harassing or persecuting the Gentile boys and girls. So God bless the Israel of God. The end. I got the James Gang blues.
Oh yeah. I'm telling
Have
you,
you heard about the law? Bum, 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 bum. I got to tell you about the law. Bum, 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 bum.
But Ace, if they bless Israel, they'll be a blessing and they'll get all kinds of goodies from heaven. That's what the church teaches. Give your money to Israel, baby.
Hey, Abacus, I didn't know if you saw, but I pulled that. I asked your question to Chat GPT, and that was the whole response. That was, so if you want to go back and scroll to your calendar question. Yes, I did, and I think I took a little too much.
Is it something you want to clue us in on?
The horse dewormer in chat. They're asking. Oh yeah,
He's on the phone, Ace.
No, I think I too much. No, I'm not on the phone. Oh, well, I could have had a funny. We could have had. I could have a funny skit right now. I should have taken advantage of that. Doggone it!
I set you up for it.
You did. I dropped the ball. No, I'm not on the phone. I'm answering. I'm kind of on the phone because I'm answering the chat that I'm seeing. And someone had asked me if I took the ivermectin that they got me from a horse feed store.
Oh,
so I took. I didn't know. I wasn't thinking. I was trying. I told you I'm confused and stuff. So I took it, But this is for 1,200. This whole vial's for 1,200 pounds. So just because he sent me 3 of these, and you're only supposed to take this 2, maybe 3 times. So in 2 weeks, I was thinking this was 1 dose because he had 3.
Whoa.
So no. But I figured it out before I actually took it. So I'm fine. I just think I took a little too much. It comes out. It didn't come out like perfect at the beginning. So I thought, well, there's some missing there from the very tip. And so I squeezed a little bit more out. And I justified that was probably the amount on the plunger thing. So I probably took maybe at most 300 micrograms instead of 200 per pound of flesh. Anyways, yeah, we'll see. It's supposed to start working in like 3 days, like noticeable results.
Wonderful. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, and then you don't
Yeah.
take it, but every like the next time I can take it is 2 weeks. That, you know, 1 little dose like that is crazy, huh?
Do you feel any difference with it, or is it, or you
I
don't
know
notice
time.
much? Huh?
No, I got a headache and I got real
Okay.
cold after about 30 minutes. And some
Okay.
the headache is a side effect, so it can be a side
Yeah.
effect. I didn't take enough to do any harm. No.
Okay.
But
That's
you
the
got to
same
convert
stuff.
kilograms into, you know, because the medical stuff online will have everything in kilograms. So if anyone's trying this, a kilogram
Yeah.
is not a pound. So you're reading the American meds, they're all for pounds. You got to do the math and realize that, you know, I'm 64 pounds if I was in kilograms, not 140 pounds.
Oh.
Anyways.
Oh.
No. Tapeworms. I'll go with that. All right. About this long. No, it's a burst staph infection that they can't get rid of, that the doctors
I've
haven't.
got some duct tape worms.
Yeah. That's why I can't shave. I can't even touch my face. I got these blisters on my fingers and stuff. And so for the last a long time, I don't know, a month or 2, I haven't been able really. I don't want to shave. Hurts.
I certainly hope that helps you out, Cade. Wow.
Me too.
That would be wonderful.
And the doctors gave me this medical system, man. Not only, and they have no idea how dangerous it is to give someone antibiotics over and over and over. So I went yesterday and not only got 1 prescription for antibiotics, got another phone call on the way out of there. And they wouldn't give me the antibiotics that I was wanting. There's 2 brands that I was wanting. And anyways, it called me up and gave me another bottle. So I got 2 sitting up there at the pharmacy, but I want to do the ivermectin first and give it a week and see if I start noticing the blisters disintegrating.
Well, antibiotics doesn't do anything to MRSA anyway, does it?
Not many. So they have to take they'll take your swab, or they'll take a sample of, you know, if they squeeze pus out or lancet, send it off to a lab or a university and sit there and have to test it on which antibiotic is going to work on this strand. And then they prescribe you that antibiotic, and on and on. So I've had like 12 different regimens of antibiotics over the last year and a half. That is too many. It makes me highly susceptible to mold and, you know, all that other junk. So we'll see if this dewormer, which, yeah, there is lots of evidence online that it does. Doctors, everything, doing the whole treatment on MRSA with it. It's only been approved for other things, though, in humans.
Yours truly. Who's that?
I don't know. And so you can't walk. The bummer is there is human pills of this ivermectin, but you can't walk into the doctor and buy them. You know, you got to go that whole shit system, get a referral, maybe all that. So, but you can walk into a horse feed store and buy the same thing for horses. Yeah. And this is apple flavor. I mean, can you believe it?
Yeah, I had two male
Can you taste
rabbits.
it?
Hell yeah, it's paste. It's like I can show you what it looks like here.
It tastes
It
like
comes
apple, huh? Like a
Yeah.
Jolly Rancher or some shit.
Really? That's what this is like.
Well, I don't know. I'm asking him. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, so right here it says it's on right. Look at that, man. I was all excited. I was like, hell, apple flavor.
That's funny.
They don't flavor our human medicine like that unless we're children.
Right.
What do you mean?
All right, here's what it looks like. So you can see now I've got it
See,
leveled
I
off.
just did on my rabbit. Yeah.
Don't waste any of it, Cade, just to show us.
I can't take. I've got 3 of these, so I mean,
Well,
yeah. Well, no, I'll show you because there's no way I'm gonna take.
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Unless
toothpaste,
someone wants
isn't it?
some, does anyone need some?
Wow.
Oh, right there. See it? That's
I'll
it.
bet you
And I
that.
won't waste
I bet you that shit works, dude.
Ooh. Wait a second.
I don't know.
What is it?
I feel like I've been shut up.
Wait, is that working the way I think it is?
Magic.
It
Look
is.
at that stuff. Whoa, check that out.
Put that toothpaste back in the tube.
Okay.
Yeah,
Exciting.
that looks like some
Boring.
apple toothpaste, man.
Yeah, it does taste like apple, and it
Yeah,
is. It's
Fucking great.
yeah. Anyways, yeah. We'll
I
see.
paid for this. I told
Can
my
you come?
husband that last summer. I was swinging a fucking machete. I was feeding my rabbits the end of the tree.
Mm.
And I'm swinging this fucking thing, and I'm like, I looked at my husband and I said, I feel like I was made for this. I was fucked up at the time, but I really did.
I look
feel
the same
that
way, Sean. Right now, I look the same way.
What's that?
I said, Sean, I look the same way as you do right now.
What is that talking about? All right, I'm
He's
already
fu-
tripping.
he's-
No,
Make
turn your
me
mic
laugh.
up. You can't.
He's
We can't
teasing
hear your
me.
microphone. Your microphone
really?
is. Yeah, your microphone's
All right, I
garbled.
feel like you guys are fucking with me right now. All right, wait a minute.
Your mic is kind of squirrely.
All right, is that better?
How's my sound?
Maybe.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, you just need to talk loud
No,
when
I
you
can't
talk.
hear you
You're gonna
guys.
be far away,
My Lord,
but you come in clear, Sean. Just
How's
talk
that?
louder if you're good. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
You know what's wrong with you. You know how this works. So before you
How
come
does
in
that
here,
work
you need to
now?
get all your shit
Wait a
like
minute,
lined
Eddie.
up. Your
How does that
audio
work
work.
now?
Listen to me. Get your audio tested. Make sure you go through all that stuff on your own.
Buzzing. I'm not even thinking about technical bullshit.
We can tell. We appreciate it though when you do.
I know. I try. And there's only so much I'm willing to do.
Did I get a go F yourself?
Yeah, you did.
Wow, man.
That was a long time coming.
That's okay.
I know. We all have to
Life
wait.
will get better. Life will get better.
Yeah, the best is yet to come. Oh. Oh, my heavens. I think I fucked up. This is fucking hilarious. Tell me it's not hilarious.
Okay, now we can talk.
This was the theme music for The Fall Guy, by the way. Oh, she's gone. Did it work? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So,
That's mean. I can't wait for the next time.
what'd you learn tonight, Cade?
I learned that, again, proven that there's a big difference between Peter's message and Paul's message. I learned indeed that it's very hard. Again, I appreciate it, seeing people that believe the other way and hearing their responses. It's a good contrast. And I think it helps the audience. I think if I was listening, if the me now or the me back then was listening now, I think every time I heard the argument after hearing, collectively everyone's thoughts on that matter of Peter and Paul, I think I would start to question, wait a second, why is this, the defenses are not making sense? You know what I mean?
So you went to church for 25 years. Did you ever hear a sermon on the complete letter to the Galatian saints?
No, I have not.
It's such a short letter with so much richness in it. I don't know why they hop over it.
You know what? I have to say this, Ace. There was about 3 years that I went to church in my entire life, probably maybe maximum close to 4. And I swear they never, I don't ever remember them bringing up the letters of Paul at us, going to a service. I do not remember them ever. They would refer to Paul at times, like just little scriptures when they say, oh, you guys cherry pick. No, they cherry picked like you wouldn't believe. And it was very, very little, but they never did a one book after the next out of the letters of Paul. I don't ever recall them ever doing a study on Paul. Ever. But I don't know, maybe Cade heard it differently when he was involved with church, but I never really heard a study on Paul.
No, I've heard the message of grace, and all that, but it certainly wasn't Paul's message of grace.
Yes,
it had all of that James stuff and John, everything written to the Hebrews. They don't even know to separate that, when the letter starts out, to the house of Israel. Why do you think he's putting to the house of Israel there? He doesn't want someone else reading it that's not from the house of Israel and getting confused or messing up their program.
It's almost like they completely danced around Paul. They'd go way to the other side, and then they stick to the 4 Gospels, or they go back into the Old Testament.
Or they bring in a video of Sid Roth at Supernatural and spend an hour or 45 minutes on that craziness.
Some freak show like that. But
who is Sid Roth?
He's a Jew. He's a Jewish guy.
Anyone that asks me why, sometimes I say, when they say, how come you're not a Christian? I say, go watch Sid Roth at Supernatural. That's why.
Yeah, that's some crazy stuff there, brother.
Oh, plastic and fake as shit. Oh my God. All showmanship and oozing and dripping, bringing prophets in there saying that they hear from God.
And they love to sell you on the whole Jewish thing, man. I'm telling you. They say, it's Christian Zionism. It's connected to Israel. They love to sell you on that. They keep you focused on Israel. It's all about the Jews. If you're a piece of pork saved by grace, we don't want to hear about it, baby. But yeah, you would never hear that. You never hear no studies on it. It's almost like they just avoided the whole thing altogether. Anytime it came to Paul, it got avoided.
This is why I do appreciate Nancy and people that are blatantly, I think what she's saying is great. Peter and Paul's message are freaking different, miles apart. It's there. That's where you need to start, first of all. And you won't even get there in a modern Christian church. You'll never get there. They'll keep you wrapped up in cognitive dissonance so tight and have you read what we just read here about those two coming to separate agreements and all, and have you deny what you're reading and keep those two together like they're in one accord. It's
But if you start asking questions, though, you could end up with ushers surrounding you like security guards at a gambling casino with electric prods, getting ready to zap you. If you ask any questions, buddy, you turn around and there's like the ushers standing there and they look like security. It's crazy. Do we need to remove you from the building?
that is funny.
It's weird, I swear. That movie Casino, I love that movie Casino, where the dude's cheating at the card table and the security guys surround him. He doesn't even see him behind him. And then the dude comes up with one of those electric cattle prod things and bumps him and just literally knocks him on his butt. It's just hilarious. And I think of the same thing when you go to like a church setting like that. It's kind of weird.
So Dale, did they ever kick you out of church?
No, not kick me out, but I was warned not to express my views to anyone. But oddly enough, it really had nothing to do with Paul's Evangel. It had to do with 501c3 tax exempt organization status. But it was shortly there. It was really right after that I became aware of the effectiveness of the work of Christ on the cross, and that mainline Christianity had no clue about it. So actually, I just got so uncomfortable being there myself. It was hard for me to keep my mouth shut. In fact, the CEO of the organization, in one of his messages, he said something that I had recently come to understand was BS, and I'm not sure exactly what I said, but it was kind of under my breath. But his wife was sitting right in front of me, and she did a slow turnaround.
Good.
To look at me,
Did you enjoy every second of that?
Yeah.
That slow look around, I would have just bathed in that for a minute.
It was kind of weird because I didn't even think I said it loud enough for anyone to hear, but apparently I did.
She were rewarded. You should have winked at her when she turned around and blew her a kiss.
Yeah.
Anyway. Are we still on live, Ace?
Yep.
Oh wow.
I do start to see the life you lived in those 3 years, Dale, when you use such words instead of pastor, CEO. I can kind of read between the lines of things being said.
Yeah.
Hey, CEO. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I got all into that too for a bit. Recognizing the government gag order for money. Amazing, as Jesse Lee Peterson would say. Amazing.
I don't know much about him.
He's go watch him tonight. You'll fall in love. He's fun. It's not so much God stuff as it is just challenging every woke person on there. My God, it's brutal.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, but I'm pretty sure I've seen him before.
He's funny.
Black guy, right?
Yeah, he's funny. He's hilarious. I love him. He's great. Yeah. He's a pastor. Let's see. I wouldn't know that man was a pastor for a good minute. He doesn't focus on any of that. He's blatantly doing something different than what you do at a church. He's doing something for profit and a radio show and all of that. See, straightforward about it. Unlike these James gangs in these verses, self-censoring and stuff. How dare they? I've never done that. My goodness. I never could. How dare you even think I could? What's wrong with you?
How dare you?
You think I could? You think I? Oh, I've heard it. Just like that.
So tomorrow morning when we do the show, I think, not sure, but I think we'll hop over to this page right here, this little PDF. It's a PDF of the Unsearchable Riches from way back, 1917 and 1918. Go to page 57, and it's an article by Brother Alan Burns called The Genesis of Evil. So I think in the morning we'll read that together.
Wow.
The Genesis of Evil.
What year, Ace, did that come out?
1917 or 1918.
Shit.
Fire.
Long time, man.
And I'll read you a couple of opening lines from the article. It says, to understand the genesis of evil is halfway towards understanding its exodus. To grasp how it came into the universe is to simplify the understanding of how it will go out. There is obviously a logical relationship between its incoming and its outgoing. For naturally, the rationale of its departure from creation will be the reverse of its entrance. Cool.
Wow.
Hot dog.
So that's kind of like the next two eons are just going to be glorious. Beautiful. This is the tail end of the third one, right?
The exodus of evil?
No, I'm talking about in the eons. Is this the end of the third eon? Are we moving towards the end of the third eon?
Yes, we are.
And then we're moving into two glorious, beautiful eons after this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the shit show of this one's got to get really black, so that when that new one comes, it's just going to be unreal.
Infallible. Oh, yeah.
Why do they hate? I don't understand why they hate Paul. Why are they taking all their shit out on Paul? I don't get that. Varmint says that he's wicked and evil and he's all this shit and he's a false teacher. I mean, where's he come up with this stuff?
Well, just, he's got a spirit of persnickety. You ever heard of the spirit of persnickety?
That's a word. Well, it's a word I've heard on here. It's probably holding shit under the microscope and making bigger than it really is.
Yeah.
That'd be my definition.
So Paul is wicked and evil, and who cares? Because Christ died for the wicked, and Christ died for the evil, and Christ died for the sinners. And while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us.
Sean, would you, and Dale too, wouldn't you say that Ace, he's perfected the art of he's like a pickpocket button pusher. Like he could push a button so smoothly and without anyone even noticing that those fingers are going out. Hilarious.
There's two aspects of Ace, and I told him one already. He's the Clint Eastwood of the body of Christ. When he says bite me means make my day, right? That's the translation. And the other one is once he does that, it's all over with. You know, you're just gonna go right back to the basics. Might as well just shut your trap and listen up, because it's gonna be beautiful. Oh, that's Ace, man, in a nutshell. I'm telling you. He doesn't care about all these details.
Quit
Crap.
complimenting now. There's only so much you could do before we get.
No, I'm not complimenting him. I'm just saying he's not. No, I'm not complimenting him. I'm just saying it's how it is.
Yeah, every now and then you got to call him like an SOB or something, just like once every 3-4 months.
Well,
just so they can hear that, or they'll have us written up as passing Kool-Aid around before we get to head off to a trip.
Oh, some guy was on the other day calling him a cult leader, and they're making big old fucking jokes about it.
It's funny.
It's like, give me a break. It's God. It's not Ace. It's God. Get it? No.
Dale, are you going to that Phoenix meeting?
I doubt it.
Yeah, you got one in Nebraska too. That'll be in September, I think.
That might be a little more possible. I don't know.
You're not within driving distance, Dale, of Phoenix? Like an 8-hour drive?
Oh, I doubt it. I don't know how many hours. I'm in Michigan, so I don't know how far.
Shit, I thought
how
you were in
many hours?
California.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
You're closer than all of us, I think, aren't you, Kate?
Yeah, I'm
pretty
close.
Oh, but you'd be pretty close.
Yeah, like 8 hours, I think. 7 hours, something like that.
Yeah,
if you were driving.
You just go, wouldn't you go through Lancaster or some shit? It just heads right over to
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Now a bike could get there in about 3.5 hours. Me and my son and I.
Are you right next to Magic? Are you right near Magic Mountain?
No, about an hour from there, 45 minutes or so.
Oh.
An hour, yeah. Yeah, but not far. Used to work there.
Okay, fellow knuckleheads, let's exit stage right.
Amen. Thanks a lot for coming on late.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ace. Appreciate it.
Nice seeing you, Dale, Sean, whoever else was here.
Good to see you, brothers. Good seeing you, Dale.
Good to see you, Sean. I like your Gumby with his pony pokey.
Yeah, I remember when it was so cool when that thing came out when I was little. I remember that. It's funny.
All right, Ace, I'll see you. Love you all.
See you guys.
Bye, brother.
Love you, man.
Okay, thanks. See you guys. Anonymous talk. Jeez. Why didn't I click that button before I saw that? All right. See you, Ace. Thank you.
Bye, Dale. Peace be on them, and mercy also on the Israel of God. Good night, Stephanie. Good night, one in Christ. Good night, Christ wins. Good night, Dirty Varmint and Yahoo and Nancy and Hill and Arbicus and oh yeah, don't forget tomorrow morning we'll probably do this show, The Genesis of Evil, written by Brother Alan Burns in 1917. That was over 100 years ago, right? I'm looking forward to it. Good night, Law of Faith. Good night, Hill. Good night, Arbicus. Did I mention you already? Oh, yeah. Good night, Guitar Baron. Baron Guitar. And let's see, Stephanie, I think I mentioned you already. Scrolling down to make sure I catch a bunch of you. Jamie Russell was in. He's probably gone by now. Well, thank you, Cade and Dale and Dirty Varmint for coming in. And Sean and JG. I tell you, there's nothing really that we can boast in. If we think that we are going to hop to the law, it's going to be an embarrassing disaster. Thank God for the cross of Christ, that's where our salvation, our justification, our conciliation and reconciliation happens. It happens at the cross. And thank God that God gives us the faith to believe these matters. He doesn't give faith to everybody at the moment. For 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 2 says, not for all is the faith. Not for all is the faith. It's not their time yet. God has an Eonian purpose, and he will bring everyone home. No one can escape the efficacy of Christ's work on the cross. Amen. Thanks for coming in. Good night.